All right, at this time I'm going to call the City Council meeting of June 10th to order. It is 6 p.m., 6:02, 6:03. Please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, roll call, Ms. Zito.
Vice Mayor Borelli.
Here.
Mayor Hagan.
Here.
Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
He's absent.
Absent. Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, under announcements and presentations to the public, I don't have anything, but I have a gentleman in the audience that would like to speak to us for a short minute.
Uncle Fuzzy.
Okay. Affectionately known as Uncle Fuzzy, according to Ms. Borelli, who's got more experience around the...
Call me Rich Mason. So, I'm here tonight to bring you folks up to date a little bit about the World Go Paddling Championships in 2016. It's going to be the third weekend in September. Now, this is a event. This is not a 2-day party thing. This will be a week. We have reserved the fairgrounds for one entire week. During that period of time, there will be don't know, but hopefully someplace between 600 and 800 contestants that will be participating, plus their entourages. As of now, on our website, which you can go ahead and look at it at your leisure, punch it up. The first page that comes up is a picture of Placerville. There's not a picture of Coloma. It's not a picture of the fairgrounds. It's a picture of Placerville. So far, the website's been active since October last year. We've had 47 nations have visited and about 2,700 hits on it. Now, if you take a look at it, it's all linked in to various things, the tourist place, Go Bug Mine. Have fun looking at it. I know Trish has looked at it. Hopefully Patty's looked at it since. And I'm really here tonight to tell you what Placerville's responsibility is going to be in it. The first night is the opening ceremonies will be on a Tuesday night. It will be a parade of nations that hopefully will start up at the Druid Memorial and come on down and have the opening ceremonies at the bell tower. Now with that, we're going to do it early enough in the evening so we encapsulate everybody so they have no place to go to eat but where? Town. Hopefully the stores will be open so these people from overseas can come and do what? Spend their money. That's the whole purpose of this, is to give them an opportunity to leave their euros, the Swedish rands, not Swedish, but the South African rands and so forth here in our county. Now, I want to bring up something today. It was in this beautiful paper called the Sacramento Bee. It happens to say that the tourist dollar set a new record in state. The sad thing is we fall behind Placer County. All right. We have 9 million, and they have 11 million or something like that worth of dollars. I'm out to see that gets changed a little bit. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is I went and made a presentation in South Africa to the World Board of the Go Paddling Association. Now, that's been around for 40 years. Well, 38 years now. Will be 40 and 16. And I had to stand up in front of about 30 nations and make a presentation. It would have been wonderful, but KLM lost all my luggage and all my stuff. So I had 4 pieces of paper to hand out and do a soft shoe routine. You know, Bob Hope at his finest. I guess I like Bob Hope. So anyway, I was able to do that. We got a unanimous vote because everybody wants to come to America. And it's already happening. During the Go Expo that was here, 2 gentlemen came from Finland. One writes a travel blog. The other one happened to be a prospecting miner from up in the Arctic Circle area where most of the gold is there in Finland. So this is already happening. People are coming. So what we need to do, or what the city needs to do, is to support this in the best way they can. And part of that will be next year, There will be a passing of all the documents, the flag, and all that stuff that will go along with that because we will be the host nation. We also have to put on an evening thing with food and whatever, entertainment or whatever we want to do. So I encourage you, and I've even challenged you to send a representative. And it'd be great to have a representative go this year to Sweden because they're going to put on a first-class show. And Trish has been to our meetings. Patty's been to a couple of them. And so I think the city should find some place in their budget at least the airfare to get somebody over there and back. It's not god ugly if you do it right. Now, also when this comes in, we are to make this more advantageous to everybody and to bring the sales tax dollars into Placerville and El Dorado County. That weekend, we're going to have the California Federation of Mineral and Gem Societies is going to put on their state show. Now, during October, we have one that lasts 2 days by our local club, and it handles someplace between 2,000 and 3,000 people come for a 2-day show. But now we're inviting all the dealers from all over to come to the Federation show, which is a 3-day event. So that's why the fairgrounds is going to be taken for a whole week. And so the fees are going to be a little bit higher for those folks that want to come because people that come from overseas, they're not going to buy something big like a piece of mining equipment to take home. But what are they going to buy? A gem, a piece of artwork from the gallery. They'll take a painting and have it rolled up or shipped or something along that line. So with that, we're expecting the biggest whiz-bang show at the fairgrounds in probably 50 years. So now the problem is, or I should say the challenge is, who wants to be part of this? Are we going to be part of it? You know, and it's going to start on that Tuesday night right here. It's going to set the basis of how this program will go on. So I will be back. We'll do a real presentation one of these days. They're working on it now. We have a couple ladies who are co-chairs, and they're very good at what they do. I'm the one that's head of the competition, but I'm also the face overseas of this thing because everybody knows me by Uncle Fuzzy. In Italy and South Africa and a few places, there's a drink, F-U-Z-Y, and they call it Fuzzy. That's a water with gas. So I'm known that way. So Patty laughs, it's true. Ask my wife, you know. And so I encourage you to send the representatives this year, and I definitely hope that you will send the mayor, part of the city council. You can send the chief administrative officer, the gentleman up here that could come and go, because we will need that. We will need somebody from the county too. So I want to thank you for your time, and we'll be back for more. So more will be revealed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions?
No.
No? Okay.
Okay. And and we had no closed session, but I'll let you make that official. I'll say that there is no report. Adoption of the agenda. There's one change in the agenda. Mr. Morris? Item.
Yes, we're requesting that we move up item 11.3 to beginning of the discussion item, so 11.1.
Okay. And we're going to remove item 11.4.
Yeah, I'd like to make an announcement on that. When that report went out at the time, initially when I wrote it, I was actually unaware, and Councilmember Wilkins was also unaware that Councilmember Borelli. Councilmember Borelli was already through the EDCTC attending the study mission. My fault. I should have checked with Councilmember Wilkins and made sure that she knew that. She did not know that. Otherwise, she would have not requested to attend the study mission. She was actually requested by the chamber president to attend it. And so I want to make that clear that if she had known that, she would, we've had discussions, she would not have requested to attend. So with that information, we'd like to pull that item to not be considered tonight. So.
And what did you say we're changing? The
11.3 is going to move up in front of 11.1.
Move for adoption with the changes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And item, under ceremonial matters, item 6, Ms. Zito, would you, at this point, introduce Nick Stone, a new employee who will be sworn in today.
I'd be happy to. Nick, in our orange public work shirt, was given his orientation and started work within the last 2 weeks. Nick comes to us with a lot of public works type experience, a lot of experience in installing underground lines, and he also comes to us with the desirable certifications that we were looking for. We had 50 applicants for these positions, for this position. We hired the top 2 candidates. Nick is one of the top 2. So we interviewed about 12 of those 50, so we got the cream of the crop. And although Nick took his oath of office officially during the orientation, he will be taking his oath ceremonially tonight with you.
All right, thank you. Guess we didn't practice this, so just go ahead and she'll join you up here.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. There is a proclamation on the agenda, so if you really want to hear that tomorrow at just before noon, I will be reading the proclamation, or most of it, at the El Dorado County Fair for their opening ceremonies, Thursday, at just before noon at the El Dorado County Fair main gate. So please join us. This is Fair Week. This is a great time in Placerville. It's another economic booster for this community. So I just want to basically invite you all to the fair, and if anybody would like to see the proclamation, it's actually part of the agenda packet. This time is a public comment, brief non-agenda items. So if you have a public comment, this will be the time after when I request oral communications. You'll have up to 3 minutes, and please state your name, and if you've do it. If do we have any written communication? None, other than Fuzzy's presentation. The oral communications. Anybody with comments that would like to make that are on non-agenda items, would you please come forward and state your name for the record?
Hello, I'm Lorenzo Smith, manager and owner at Hangtown Originals on Main Street. I'm not here to complain about anything. I just want to say thank you to the police chief and all your helpers for cleaning the back of all our businesses up back there, Reservoir Street. No more graffiti, no more needles, no more drive up, drive through, in and out druggies. I mean, it was bad back there. Haven't seen anything for at least 6 months to a year. No problems. They were all up on the hill, not homeless people, just a bunch of people that had nothing else to do, I guess. I don't know. That's not happening. We have a lot of employees, older women and guys that go back there at night to get their cars. It's a big parking lot, and they're not afraid to go back there anymore. It's just real nice, and whatever you're doing, thank you. Keep up the great work. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next.
My name is Don Corvin. I own the building at 474 and 476 Main Street. And it kind of it's not necessarily part of the agenda, but the questionnaire that came with the water bill was on the proposed sales tax increase.
So that's going to be later on in the agenda?
Okay.
So
because
that'd be the,
I wasn't here about the tax increase. I was here about the water bill.
okay,
The water bill, I was an employee with the largest public utility in the United States, LA Department of Water and Power. We got into this sewer charge stuff. 1 unit of water, 1 unit of sewer. Placerville has 1 unit of water, 3 units of sewer. I pay the total bill is over $300 for 2 toilets. 2 toilets, one in 474 and one in 476. I think it's outrageous.
Okay.
It's absolutely outrageous. And if anything, I wouldn't vote for anything, sales tax increase or anything, until something is done about this water bill.
okay, well, there's one thing if you read the water bills is, if you've noticed over the past 2 years, one of the things, because of a sales tax increase, you actually have a Measure H credit on your sewer bill.
$55. It would,
Correct.
my bill
That's
would be
a-
almost $400 if
Okay.
it wasn't for that.
That's right. And, but every business does it. Again, we don't work with as many people as LA, but I'd like you to contact our finance director, Mr. Dave Warren. He can give you one of his cards, and he can maybe review your bill and make sure it's what maybe some of the options you might have.
I
So-
don't think I have any options.
Well, okay, but. Thanks. Any additional comments on items that are not on the agenda?
Kirk Smith of Placerville. I wanted to express the concern that the message sent by approval of an initiative may not have been clear. And I'm referring to the anti-roundabout petition adopted in an amazing 13 days, because it was thought to be a constructive vehicle. And yet I've heard from a number of people that various staff have said that it will not impact their decisions, because even if approved, as would likely be the case, they can still connect Clay Street to Cedar Ravine and move the Druids Monument. And if so, that would be contrary to that kind of message. And I think it just unfortunately would necessarily suggest the need for another initiative, which there's still time to do. The expressed interest involved in that process was very strong for people who actually considered recall petitions. And notes would come in from folks suggesting the same thing, expressing how strong the anger is, the kind of thing that this body has acknowledged in recent years. So I would hope between now and November, there can be a number of steps constructively taken by this body to show a different course. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident. This is the first time I heard about the world champion gold panning coming to Placerville. A number of years ago, this was held in Coloma, and it was really a wonderful event. I participated, my daughter participated. She actually still has her little medal from gold panning. And it was a fun event. We had people from Australia, people from Finland, people from Alaska, all over the United States. It was amazing. It would be a great thing to be able to do here in Placerville.
Thank you, Sue. Any other comments? Seeing nobody walking up to the call, we'll close the oral communication time. Under consent calendar, we have items 8.1 through 8.9, I believe. Any of those items that either anybody on the council wishes to pull or change or have questions on?
I do. I'd like to pull 8.5 for discussion later.
Anybody else? Okay.
With the exception of 8.5, I'll move. Oh, public, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think you.
Any public comment on items 8.1 through 8.9, with the exception of 8.5, which has been pulled? Seeing nobody approaching the mic. Are you sure?
Hi, I'm Jan Carr. My wife and I, Kathy, have lived here about 11 years. As many of you have heard me say, at least up here, over the past 4 or 5 weeks, this is all new to me, and it's a learning process. I'm wondering or hoping I can be so given some wisdom as to 8.4, 1, 2, and I think 3, and just can I be told a little bit more what this is all about? Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments, concerns? Okay, I'll close the public hearing, and then we can answer that. Ms. Zito, maybe you can do it, but basically it's state law that we have to call for public elections, and that we are required to, or we have the option to tie to the state and federal election at the same time, so that we're not putting a special election. So this, in effect, saves us money as a city, because we're tying to all of the other elections that are taking place at the same time. We don't have to have our own poll workers, our own facilities. We're not printing our own ballots. We tie on to those other ballots. So that's the purpose for 8.4, and that's your answer. So,
Thank you. Makes a lot of sense.
okay. Whew. It's been a long time since anybody told me that. But I'm just.
Can I comment on 8.8 and 8.9?
Okay, but
You have to come up to the...
come up to the mic, please, and introduce yourself.
My name is Kathy Dean, and I have a question on 8.8, the Placerville Station 2 project. I tried looking it up on the website. It went blank. But more importantly, 8.9, I'm sorry.
Pavement management project?
That's 11. Okay. Placerville Station 2 project, it's not clear based on the wording. Is this for a new 8-inch water line that you're pulling $100,000 from Measure H funds?
Okay. Is that all the questions you have?
Well, my other one really is on 11.3.
That would be later in the agenda.
Okay.
So, item 8.8, Nate, would you answer that quick question? Basically, that's a project we've been working on for several years.
Yes, Placerville Station 2 is a project to expand the park and ride that's at Mosquito Road and the Highway 50 off-ramps, Main Street, Broadway area, Clay Street. The condition of the pavement from Clay Street to the city limits is very poor, and especially from Dimity Lane north to the city limit. We've, under this, requested a $200,000 appropriation of funds for an overlay project. And prior to doing that, there is a section of 1-inch water main that serves all the homes above, north of Dimity. So that it would be irresponsible not to upsize that line prior to overlay. And so I brought that information to the attention of the Measure H committee, who made a recommendation to fund $100,000 for a new 8-inch water main, 650 feet of water main and a fire hydrant.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Yes.
ask a question? Nate, could you please fill me in? I didn't get a chance to drive up there, but where exactly is the city limit line?
It is about 1,300 feet north of Dimity.
Okay.
There's that series of homes on the left-hand side. There's about 10 homes,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's maybe a couple hundred feet past the last home.
So it's not all the way to Prescott?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to call,
Are we doing the consent calendar?
I'm in the consent calendar, but I already closed the public hearing, but public questions.
Okay, I had from the Measure H committee on 8.8. This
Okay.
is something that we did discuss at the last Measure H committee meeting. And we did look at this business of, it needs at least an 8-inch line in that section in order to provide sufficient water flow and fire protection. And a 1-inch line, we were appalled to find out there's only a 1-inch line there. I mean, that's almost like telling somebody, here's your water main, it's a garden hose. So we definitely approved to take some of the Measure H money that's finally becoming sufficient to do some of these projects. I mean, it's been accumulating over the last couple, 3 years since we passed the Measure H sales tax. And finally, we have enough to do some of these projects, and this was one we thought was well worthy of doing. In the first place, if you put an overlay project on top of a water line that's insufficient and it breaks and leaks later, it's going to ruin your street, and then you'll have to be digging up your brand new street. So it just seems like this is a really good thing to tag on to. They're going to be ripping up the street anyway, so Measure H doesn't have to pay the cost of that. All we have to do is pay the cost of the new water line.
Good.
So we
Thank
thought
you,
it
Sue.
was well worth it.
Yes, I agree. And thank you very much for all your effort on that Measure H committee. Yeah, when we typically do road repairs, if we're doing a section of road, one of the things we try to look at is the infrastructure to make sure that we can not go in there 2 weeks after it's paved and tear up the main street. As we're doing on Main Street, that's one of the things Measure H committee is working with us on, both sewer and water lines, to make sure that we take care of the projects underneath the street before we repave it. You're always going to have some work that comes back later, and they're going to say, I told you so, but unfortunately, we can't be completely clairvoyant. I don't know if that's a very good word in engineering, but all right. So at this time, I'll bring it back to this dais, and we will call for the question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a motion or a second.
I made a motion, but I don't think it was ever seconded.
I'll second.
I'll second, or I'll
Okay, all except for item
8.5.
8.5. Okay,
Vice Mayor Borelli,
Aye.
Mayor Hagan,
aye.
Councilmember Patton,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
Thank you. And under ordinances, 9.1 is the next item. It's a second reading of an ordinance repealing Title VI, Chapter 17 of the Placerville Municipal Code. Chief Heller?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and defer to City Attorney.
Okay,
I think it just got handed off, Mayor.
all right.
This matter is back before the council for a second reading of the ordinance, which was introduced at the last council meeting. The ordinance will eliminate provisions in the Placerville City Code which have been preempted by state statute relating to places where registered sex offenders can visit. It's a product of two recent civil court cases, rather, stemming from the area around Orange County. A couple of jurisdictions had similar type ordinances. They were challenged, and the court found that those ordinances were not valid because the area had been preempted by state law. The matter went up to the California Supreme Court for a hearing. The California Supreme Court denied the hearing, and as a result, those two decisions now represent valid law in the state of California. So our ordinances are unenforceable, they're in conflict with state law, and because of that, they need to be removed from the books. And as last time, I recited a number of state statutes that dealt with what and where registered sex offenders can go, that sort of thing. The state has put forth a very large number of statutes covering their conduct, and it's that basis that the appellate courts ruled that our ordinances and some ordinances similar to ours were preempted.
Okay. Any questions by staff?
No, but I would like to stress what, or what John just said, because when we first got this, we were all a little upset, but then when he explained what really is covered by the state, we felt much better. I think we're covered.
I was very upset because the letters were addressed to me and they were going to sue me. But I think we've addressed it correctly, that we have, the chief has indicated, we have a number of laws in place, that state statutes that we can rely upon to take care of most of these, and we'll follow the case law through the courts and through what other cities are doing to enhance these if necessary, or at least enhance it at the state level if not at the local level. All right, any questions of the public on item 8.4? Anybody wishing to speak on that? Seeing nobody approaching the dais? Microphone?
9.1.
9.1, sorry. 9.1. Okay, bring it back to the podium.
I make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we waive the second reading of the ordinance repealing Title VI, Chapter 17 of the Placerville City Code and adopt said ordinance.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. We are now at item 10.1, which is public hearings. At this time, we're having a budget hearing for the purpose of fiscal year 2014-2015 operating and capital improvement program budget proposals, provided any additional input to staff to develop in developing the budget proposals, and direct staff to bring back a fiscal year 14-15 operating and capital improvement budget for adoption at the June 24th, 2014 council meeting in 2 weeks.
Can you hear me now? Tonight we'll talk about our local economic environment. We'll focus on the general fund and other city funds, as well as your capital improvement program budget. Looking at your unemployment rates, locally over the last 12 months, Placerville's unemployment rate dropped about 0.9%. There was a little uptick between December and April, and as you can see, it kind of parallels what's going on statewide and regionally. We believe is just seasonal layoffs, construction, so on and so forth. But we're heading in the right direction. Looking at the number of residential real estate sales, we actually, from over the last 12 months, 4 out of 12 months, we've exceeded sales from the previous 12 months. However, total number of sales volume was down by about 10 sales. And this is citywide, or excuse me, Greater Placerville, which includes the entire 95667 zip code. And the average price, fortunately, over the last 12 months, 11 out of the 12 months was higher as compared to the previous 12 months. So that shows your inventory is maintaining its value and growing slightly. Looking at your most significant local economic indicator is your sales tax. The city receives 1 percentage point of the 7.5% Bradley Burn sales tax, which represents 53% of your total general fund revenue. Placerville continues to have strong per capita sales tax per resident of Placerville. On average, generates $359,000 in 2013. That was up by $34 as compared to 2012, which was $325. Placerville ranked in 2013 number 43 out of 539 cities. Our ranking improved. It was 47 in 2012, so we picked up a better position in 2013. Looking at your sales tax inventory, this pie chart shows you the businesses that make up and the sources of your sales tax, from apparel stores all the way down to other outlets. It also includes your county pool, which we receive our internet sales tax through, and your state pool. And you can see that major contributors, the most significant is your auto dealers, your building and materials, farm implements, and of course the county pool. And that's important when you look at the following graph, which shows you the growth in your fourth quarter sales tax as of December 31st, 2013. When you compare year over year, you can see that there's winners and losers. For example, apparel stores dropped slightly by 3.16%, where general merchandise increased 2.7%. Again, looking at the most significant contributors, auto dealers, building materials, farm implements, you can see auto dealers performed well, 19.1% growth. They've had steady growth over the last 4 years. Building materials looks odd because it shows a 268% increase, and that's a reported increase. What that doesn't show you, there was a $96,000 adjustment from one of your larger retailers here in town that was taken. It was basically the sales tax was received early in the previous quarter, and so in the fourth quarter of 2012 there was nothing reported. So that overinflates the increase for 2013. But what it actually ends up being is about a 13.52 decrease for building materials and farm implements, which is not good, but it's had steady growth over the last 3 or 4 years. Looking at our forecasts for 2013-2014, we have the Board of Equalization statewide forecast, it was published on May 23rd, and it actually had what the actuals were for the third and fourth quarter of 2013, and you can see in the top there it was 4.4% third and fourth quarter, and then forecast first and second quarter 3% and 5.5. Placerville actually in the third quarter came in at 12.55 as compared to 4.4 at statewide. Fourth quarter 17.82%. So we're forecasting very conservatively at the statewide level of 3% first quarter, 5.5 second quarter. And the total forecast for 13-14 is $3,774,124. Building upon that for your forecast for 14-15, we've basically assumed the statewide average for local Bradley Burn sales tax. And so you can see that what the board is forecasting, we've assumed as well in our general fund equal. And the forecast based on that in aggregate would be $4,014,331 for fiscal year 14-15. Looking at historical sales tax, the red bars indicate actual sales tax received over the last 10 years, as well as our 13-14 forecast and 14-15 forecast. And the blue bars indicate sales tax deflated by inflation. And the green line indicates cumulative inflation. So for example, in 14-15, we're actually somewhere between the 06, 07, 07, 08 level, which were the good years. So that's good, we're rebounding. However, if you look at the cumulative effect of inflation, where the green is, you're actually just below the 04, 05 level. So we've lost ground because of inflation, but again, we're heading in the right direction. Your general fund, as a recap, is the only true source of discretionary dollars, meaning the council can pretty much designate those funds for any purpose of city activity. Local economic vitality and aggressive cost recovery are key to a healthy general fund. The general fund pays for most major services, including public safety, streets, parks, and recreation. Your budget team, which is comprised of all department heads and the city manager, began with a status quo budget, and we tried to maintain the existing program delivery to the greatest extent possible. We did assume projected economic impacts. For example, PG&E, our electricity costs went up by about 2.7%, increases in health insurance, so on and so forth. We did assume a catch-up capital outlay program. What we mean by that is for the past 5 years, because of the Great Recession, as a stopgap measure to balance your budget, we have deferred replacing equipment. But now that your equipment is old, there's a lot of older equipment that's beginning to fail, we're having to catch up, and we'll talk more about that later in the presentation. We did assume a prudent conference, training, and travel expense budget. We assumed $7,500, first time in 5 years, set aside for community promotions. In the past, that's been anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000. But again, as a stopgap measure over the last 5 years, we've foregone having a community promotions budget until this year. There's an assumed $75,000 contingency, and this is purely coming from your general fund. We're assuming that general fund dollars are funding that contingency. In the past, again, stopgap measures, transfers have been made from your reserve for economic uncertainties to afford a contingency. This year, it's actually coming out of general fund revenues. Most vacant full-time positions remain frozen, that have been frozen throughout the recession. It also assumes full restoration of the employee pay cut. The remaining 5% mandatory time off is assumed to be restored effective the first full pay period in July. The full disclosure, the budget does not assume any GASB 45 pre-funding of retiree health. It's pay-as-you-go, meaning we assumed what the premiums will be for next year. We've assumed increases in actuarial-based pension contributions, and it ranges from 0.92 cents to 1.37 cents on the salary dollar for miscellaneous and safety pensions. And that was due to the 2008 investment losses by CalPERS and the smoothing that they implemented. In 2011, the employees partnered with the city in implementing a less expensive pension benefit for new hires. And in late 2012, the state passed Assembly Bill 340, which was the Public Employee Pension Reform Act, or PEPRA. Those two things are saving your city almost $250,000 in pension contributions a year. The council desires to have an operating reserve of 15%, and we've done that in the recent past. And we're recommending that of the $107,000 projected surplus, that $53,500 be set aside for that reserve to maintain that level, and then another $53,000 to be set aside in a vacation cash out program. The purpose of that is again, because of budget constraints, our compensated absences, the value of accumulated vacation, comp time, so on and so forth, has grown. And so this is a way to reduce that liability slightly. It does assume staffing modifications to the community services, development services, finance, and police department. And on this next slide, and I really apologize for the small print. It's even hard to read from here. But these are things we spoke about at the budget workshop on May 22nd. And what we'd like to do is kind of go through these briefly. And it starts out with the police department. I know that Cleve also would like to comment on a few of these as well as the department head. So with that, I'll hand it over to the chief to discuss the first item, which is establishing 6 paid reserve officer positions, 16 hours a week. Chief?
Thanks, Dave. I believe the first one is addressing the reserve officer program. Is that right? Okay. Currently, the city code authorizes reserve officers. However, there's not a budget authority to go along with that. So what we're proposing is a modest budget authority to allow us up to 16 hours a month between 4 to 6 officers. Those would be part-time, no benefit officers, to be utilized primarily for special events, additional patrols along the bike path, jogging path, assist with some of the other special activities from time to time. They're capped in their hours, and so that's the first request. It's also would serve as a testing ground and hopefully help with recruiting of full-time officers. The next one is school resource officer. We've worked collaboratively with the Placerville Union and El Dorado Union school districts this past year, and they are picking up approximately 75% of the total cost of that officer, and so we're requesting like approximately 25% that's left over to pick up that officer, to split time between the high school and 2 elementaries and junior high. The next request is a request for a program, a CALIA accreditation program. That is a commission on accreditation for law enforcement agencies, and it would be probably a multi-year process. It's a $3,800 expense. It would open up the agency's policies and procedures to outside inspection, transparency, and would, upon accreditation, would mitigate potential liabilities to the city and the department. That's accreditation in a nutshell. The next 3, I think, the next 3 are interrelated. There's a reclass of police lieutenant to commander, a abolishment of a current police support services supervisor position, and the addition of a police commander position. Those 3 are interrelated. There's basically it's an upgrade of the prior PSSS position, and in some sense a downgrade of a prior captain position. Last year we had within the police department a captain, a lieutenant, and a police services supervisor. This is an attempt to permanently flatten the command structure of the department. So in essence, we would replace a police captain, police lieutenant, and police support services supervisor with 2 commanders. In essence, combining the duties of those 3 and eliminating the need for 2 levels of management and replacing it with just one streamlined level, making things, I believe, a lot more efficient, and long-term there would be cost savings from that, I project. I think that's the last one.
Did you have a question at this time, Carol?
Thank you. My question was, when Dave said staffing modifications, is that what we're going into at this particular moment? And the mayor answered my question that that's
Yes.
exactly what we're going into.
Correct.
So that was my question.
Okay,
Thank
sorry.
The next one is the development services. There's a couple engineering items.
Thank you, Dave. The first one listed there is reclassification of the engineering specialist position. That's a half position. Basically what happened there is during the recession we were able to maintain the engineering specialist full-time by reclassifying him as a part-time, and then also working part-time at the wastewater treatment facility as a mechanic specialist. And so now we're reclassifying him to be full-time engineering specialist. And then we have the part-time associate engineering position. That's basically maintaining a retired annuitant that we currently have on staff. He's under contract, and he comes with vast experience from the city of Livermore, and he provides high level of engineering expertise to the department. And so we're maintaining him. It's all cost applied to CIP and other projects, so there is no, basically we're trying to maintain no cost to the general fund, but his cost then is charged directly to the projects that he works on. And then the next one is a part-time water reclamation facility operator position. That is a newly acquired retired annuitant. He comes from El Dorado Irrigation District. He's a wastewater treatment plant operator 4. The timing is very critical for right now. The wastewater treatment plant supervisor is going to be retiring at the end of July. And so it's imperative that we have somebody at that level available at the plant, and he's going to be filling that role. Also, we have one of our other high-level wastewater treatment plant operators going in for some medical surgeries, and so he's going to be out. Plus, we have some vacations, and so again, it's imperative that we have this person on staff to provide for the filling in of those various situations that we have currently. So, I think there's anything else, and I think that's my last one. And if you have any questions, I can. Thanks, Dave.
Dave, if I could, just let me add to that, the engineering positions that you see in here, the reason for those is because of the number of projects that we have due to the partially or mostly due to Measure H funds, water and sewer projects that we will be doing, and also some other street projects. But just want to emphasize that's the reason for those. The part-time engineering specialist position that we had moved over to the wastewater treatment plant, we're bringing back from that due to he does our inspections on public projects, and due to the number of projects, we want to make sure that we have that coverage to do those inspections. The engineering specialist also, due to the number of projects that we have, will be assist us in fulfilling those projects and getting them out to bid. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Cleve. The next item.
Wait a second, sorry. This probably has
a question. Pierre, you said that our head person is leaving, retiring in July?
Yes, that's correct.
So do we have, I'm not quite sure I understand what you were, all of these folks that you are, do we have a person that's going to take that position, or are these people, I don't quite understand who's going to fill in for who?
There are certain state requirements that you must have an operator for working at our wastewater treatment plant. So having him on board during this time where we may be short will provide for that required staffing levels. The wastewater treatment plant supervisor is retiring, and we will be recruiting to replace him.
Okay.
And that's
All right.
and that will begin immediately.
Are we going to be able to recruit with the same salary that we have now, or is that going to have to be increased? I mean, I know everything keeps going up, and I wasn't sure that.
Cito is saying yes.
Okay, Susan's saying yeah. Okay.
It's the same. There is not a
Okay.
proposal to increase
All right.
the salary and the step range for that position currently.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave, continue, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Pierre. The next item is a part-time traffic safety specialist, and Mr. Ewell will provide more information on that item.
Yes, Dave, that's on behalf of our Public Works Division, and we're looking to fund 2 part-time positions. The traffic safety specialist is better known as flaggers to help us in the street, to keep it's not only the public safe, but our maintenance staff, and it'll free up our guys to utilize their expertise to the greatest extent. They can spend more time with their sampling and doing those skills that require a higher level of expertise. In addition to that, I think it's a good strategy for us to get a chance to get some typically entry-level people into the field and let them get some practical experience, so that when we do have openings within the Public Works Division, we know some people that might be qualified to help us out on a permanent basis. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dave.
Thank you, Steve. And the last item on there is the reclassification of an accounting assistant 1 to an accounting assistant 2. In the finance department, we have one employee that it's an entry-level position, and the duties of that position have demanded them to work greater workload, working independently. With the change from water consumption-based sewer, larger number of accounts, and larger amount of collection efforts, the work being done is warranted as an accounting assistant 2 position, and we've held back in making this recommendation for several years because of budget constraints, but we're recommending tonight that position be upgraded to an accounting assistant 2.
Okay.
And so
I'd like to clarify.
Yeah.
Is that it on that?
Yes.
Okay, and on Steve's clarification on the flaggers, if you were, or the street safety people, those are many times they're college students home for the summer and help out during our construction season. So this is what we'd be looking for is engineering students or students who are looking for part-time work during the summer. I just wanted to clarify that. That department currently has probably 150 part-time workers through mostly students through the summer, working swimming pools, parks, recreation, but here's an opportunity to get some people with some experience doing some road flagging and so forth. They would have to take the same safety course as a full-time employee doing the same job, but we can use a entry-level person instead of somebody who's getting paid maybe $20 an hour more. So, thanks for bringing that forward. Didn't mean to interrupt you, Dave.
No, no, no.
I just want to make
you.
sure the public understood
Good
what we're doing here.
clarification.
Good information.
The proposals, the cost before adjustments, before cost recovery is $345,710. And you can see the allocation across the funds. General fund, I know it's hard to read, so I'll read these off. $189,036 general fund. Grants, $85,553. Measure J, $64,049. Water Enterprise Fund, $9,271. And the Sewer Enterprise Fund, it's actually a negative $2,199. Offsetting that because of cost recovery for your engineering specialist, because that person, instead of working half-time at the wastewater treatment plant, will be working on inspecting capital improvement projects. It generates an estimated $58,198 in cost recovery. And then the part-time engineer, associate engineer, $59,624 in cost recovery. So a total of $117,000 that offsets that $345,000 for a net cost of $227,888.
Okay.
The next slide is our catch-up capital outlay program. And there's a lot of information here, and there's even more information behind some of the numbers. But at the top, what we've done at the budget workshop, we showed you all the items. Because of the amount of information, we've truncated the pay-as-you-go. So as I indicated earlier, as a stopgap measure to balance our budget in previous years, we've held back, we've deferred purchasing capital items like cars and computers and trucks and those kind of things. But now those things are starting to break down and we need to do something about it. So what we did is we identified the items that are smaller, have a shorter lifespan, items primarily that are under $20,000, and we said, what if we did that pay-as-you-go? Meaning that we pay cash on the barrelhead in fiscal year 14-15. The total is $91,156. It incorporates anything from, you know, a bulletproof vests to desktop computers. There's 103 items. And then down below, what we did is we did some preliminary shopping for capital leases. And interest rates are very preferable right now. As a matter of fact, for an issue for anywhere from $250,000 to $750,000, interest rates for a 5-year lease is 2.15%, which is very attractive. For a 10-year lease, 2.98%. And so what we did is we took those estimated rates, we built in a 0.25% extra, if you will, just in case the market changes, because I believe interest rates are going to go up. What's going on with the market? And we assumed if we financed the items below, so it starts out with 2 police vehicles all the way down to a folder stuffer machine. There's $660,000 in items there. And I want to point out that some of these items, and give Steve an opportunity and the chief to talk about why it isn't just a matter of these breaking down. There's new regulations that require us to phase these items out. And, with that, I'd like to hand it over to the chief to talk about the 2 emergency vehicles. And at the budget workshop, just for clarification too, we had 1 emergency vehicle and we had 1 utility truck, and there was a desire by the council for us to look at other equipment. And what we found was, and the chief will address this, there's 1 vehicle that's at 80,000 miles that by the end of next fiscal year will be over 100,000 miles. We also have 2 other utility trucks that fall under the new diesel regulations that are going to have to be phased out, or we're going to face fines. So with that, I'll hand it over to the chief to kind of talk about these items that we're kind of proposing as being financed. So with that, chief.
Yeah, Dave. You know, in the past, a lot of agencies would strive to replace emergency vehicles at the 75,000 mile mark and/or 4 to 5 years. The recession obviously changed that, and that number moved up. I think the best practice right now is about 100,000, and 5 or 6 years, so the ball moved a little bit. What we were anticipating was we have currently, and this is just patrol vehicles, we have a vehicle that's north of 100,000 that we were projecting for this coming fiscal year. However, if we were to take this approach with a 2-year view, then we would be replacing a second vehicle under this. So we have 2 vehicles that would then be north of 100,000 and in past their serviceable life. So that's our part for the vehicles.
On the public works front, our challenge is trying to comply with the California Air Resources Board criteria for gross polluters. And so we took a look at our fleet, and initially we concentrated on those diesel engines that are non-compliant as of right now, and that could be facing significant fines for the city. As a result of our budget workshop, we went back and kind of took a broader scope and looked at what the impact might be over the next 3 years. And as a result of that, we added 2 more of our trucks to the list for this year for financing. One would be related directly to sewer, and the other one to water. Both trucks are F550 cab chassis, and then we utilize what's called stellar systems, so we can swap equipment off and on to the different chassis. One problem we will run into shortly with our Flesher truck, one of these ones that we're slated to replace, is there's also a generator that's associated with providing energy to the flushing system, and it's also up against a deadline. So we'd like to get those 2 new cab chassis and swap all of our equipment off of our existing trucks, replace the generator, and then that will bring our fleet completely into compliance for the unforeseen future. According to the experts, there isn't any new regulation in the works that we're really aware of at this point. They are going to ramp up, but we've been told they're going to ramp up enforcement of the regulations in 2014-15. So I think it's prudent for the city to take action now and get our fleet back in compliance.
Thank you, Steve. And something I'd like to point out, a couple things. One is the capital lease options are available for used equipment. And talking to a couple of the companies, they will lease up to the useful life of the vehicle. So if the vehicle has 3 years, they'll finance, 3 years, and also the condition of the vehicle. The other thing is that these are assumptions. Tonight's an open hearing. You have adoption at the next meeting if you so choose to adopt the budget. The other piece is that we would come back to you. We would shop for the best lease deal for you, the best package, and then we would bring proposals from the firms we spoke with, and you would have an opportunity to weigh in on it again as far as what you would like to see, the level of purchasing, the best interest rate, terms, so on and so forth. The type of lease, there's a couple different options. One's abatement, the other is appropriation, and there's cost benefits to each one that we'd have to consider. So again, these are just assumptions, and the total, you go from a total outlay of almost, a little over $750,000 to $183,780, and by fund it's $126,871. General fund, water fund $21,109, sewer $32,290, and grant funds $3,510. And so that's the assumption for now that we're recommending. So your general fund, you adopted a general fund in 13-14 of a total of $6,763,093. The proposed budget revenue is $7,492,456. We talked about sales tax. The forecast $4,014,331. All other all other taxes is your property tax, which we assumed a 1% growth factor, your business license, your franchise fees for cable, electricity, garbage, transfer tax for real estate. Those are all included in that $785,000. Construction permits, that's based on Mr. Rivas's and his staff's forecast for building permits. Intergovernmental revenue is primarily vehicle license fees, as well as reimbursements for police officer standards and training as part of your conference training and travel budget. Charges for services is anything from recreation fees to planning fees to police department contract fees. Fines and forfeitures, $115,000. That's primarily vehicle code fines, court fines, parking citation revenue, vehicle abatement. We actually, this is a pretty conservative number, I think, with the filling of our police officer positions, our vacancies, that number could far exceed the $115,000, but that's just a conservative figure. Use of money in property, that's interest, lease revenue from Old City Hall rental, town hall, pool, rental of those properties, sundry revenue. Other financing sources, $577,000 in overhead to your water and sewer funds, and then $273,000 in capital improvement program cost recovery. So Mr. Rivas's engineering staff, as they work on projects, that's time that's reimbursed back to the general fund. When it's projects that are funded by, say, RSTP or gas tax or water sewer, we can bill our staff time towards those things. On the expenditure side of the ledger, again, 13-14 balanced budget, $6,763,000. You can see that we're demonstrating a balanced budget here, $7,485,619 expenditures by department here. Central stores, as a reminder, is non-departmental things like audit, our LAFCO fees, our animal control fees, lease on City Hall, your transfers in, transfers out, which we'll talk about in a minute. The next slide is by expenditure type. So personnel, just under 75%. Material supplies, 380,000 or 5%, and you can go on down there. Capital outlay, again, we talked about $126,000, assuming the capital lease option. Other expenses, your contingency of $75,000 for a total of $7,656,307. Net transfers in $170,688 for a total of $7.4 million. Here we show you your transfers. You can see that the gas tax transfer shrunk from $309,000 to $275,000, and that's based on the League of California Cities forecast. So gas tax has shrunk. You know, our population, gas tax is one of the factors is population, and of course how much gas is sold, and people are driving more fuel efficient vehicles. City of Placerville's population has maintained about the same. So as population grows elsewhere, our proportional amount of sales tax, or excuse me, gas tax has shrunk. Hence the concern for our roads. We have shrinking funding and increased needs. So general fund transfer to the general liability fund, $79,000, pretty much about the same as last year. That's a transfer out to that fund for property and liability insurance. The continuation of the $25,000 transfer to your parking district fund. And no transfer in from the Reserve for Economic Uncertainty because our contingency is being funded by the general fund. Total transfer is $170,000 net. So again, recapping your general fund, revenue $7.3 million, expenditures before transfer $7.2, $170,000 in transfers for a total of $7.1 million. You demonstrate a surplus at that point of $248,000, and then you have the adjustments, the alternative service levels for the general fund $71,000, your capital outlays $126,000, CIP set aside, which we'll talk more about later in the presentation, 18,000, and conference training and travel, 25,000, for $242,000 in adjustments, over and beyond your status quo budget, for a surplus of $6,837. When you compare what we're proposing to where we were in 06-07, you can see that essentially our revenues are still 10%, almost 11% below where we were at the 06-07 high water mark. And when you consider inflation, we've experienced, when you look at the consumer price index has grown 16.3% since 06-07. So when you add the 10 and the 16 together, we're essentially providing the same level of service with about, well, actually 27% less resources. Switching gears to Measure J, which is your add-on sales tax for your police, augmenting your police salaries and benefits. The revenue, the sales tax revenue, we assume the Board of Equalization's forecasts. And the transfer out of $10,000 there is a partial repayment of the $137,000 interfund loan from the Reserve for Economic Uncertainties. And so you demonstrate a $99,000 surplus at that point. There's $64,000 in alternative service level adjustments. And so you end up with a $35,000 demonstrated surplus. Measure H. You heard earlier a staff report setting aside $100,000 for the the Placerville Station 2 project. That was one of the recommendations. The Measure H committee also recommended that the city continue the current sewer charge discount program for fiscal year 14-15, set aside $525,000 in fund balance for the replacement of sewer and water lines as part of the Central Main Street overlay project, the $100,000 for Placerville Station 2, and then also to conduct a ratepayer survey probably late in 2015 to evaluate future funding levels for infrastructure, to possibly see if there's an appetite to further our infrastructure replacement program. Here we show you all the projects that are currently poised for construction or to be built eventually. There's $1.7 million in funded Measure H or partially funded Measure H CIP projects, and anywhere from the Party Way, Big Cut Road, Sacramento Street Waterline project down to the Placerville Station 2 Park and Ride. And so you can see those projects there. The Measure H fund budget, again, we assume that the Board of Equalization's forecast for sales tax. We assumed the current level of sewer charge discount, which has a price tag of $487,000, and there's a $524,000 set aside for CIP projects. The Sewer Enterprise Fund, kind of difficult to forecast revenues when you're in the middle of a drought. And you say, well, how does that affect sewer? Well, you may recall that your residential sewer charges are based on winter consumption from December to February. That's easy because that already happened. So for next fiscal year, we have that information. For our non-residential customers, their sewer charges are based on current consumption. And so spent time with Cleve and the budget team, and what we assumed is $186,000 in conservation for non-residential customers because of the drought declaration. We also have a planned consumer price index adjustment that was already adopted by the county. Well, the plan was to adjust rates by the change in consumer price index. Excuse me. And the difference between the 2013-2014 CPI is about 1.87%. So we assumed a rate increase effective August 16th of 1.87%. Pretty minute. And you can see at the bottom there, we'll go through this real quick. So revenues 5.2 million, proposed operating expenditures 6.1 million before transfers. Transfers in of 408,000 net for a total expenditures of 5.7 million. At that point, you have a $514,000 deficit. Now, you may recall last year we started deficit spending. That's because of our 2006 SRF loan phase-in, loan payment phase-in. And after adjustments for ASLs, capital outlay, conference training, and travel, CIP, you have a deficit of 563,000. Where that's coming from is your rate stabilization reserve. So at the beginning of this fiscal year, we had 1.6 million, almost 1.7 million dollars in that reserve. We had to use $641,000 of that reserve this fiscal year, and so we have a balance of just over $1 million. And so for this fiscal year 14-15, we're assuming using 563,000. Now that does assume $187,000 in conservation that hopefully in fiscal year 15-16 we won't have, and so your revenues will grow due to that. And so we anticipate that by the end of 14-15 we'll have about $488,000 in the reserve, and that between operating revenues before any increase and the reserve, there'll be approximately $688,000 available for additional monies for debt defeasance at that point. Water Enterprise Fund, another one hard to forecast because of the drought, even harder actually. So revenues 1.9 million. We did assume $177,425 in conservation. We did assume, based on the additional cost of acquiring water from EID, a 3.71% increase in rates effective August 16th of this year. So after transfers, you can see that we have a $39,000 surplus. After the adjustments for ASLs, capital outlay, conference training and travel, CIP, you end up with a $39,000 surplus. However, that's monies that can also be set aside for CIP in future dates. Looking at your other special funds, gas tax, we assume the league's forecast 275,000. You have 275,000 being transferred to the general fund for general maintenance of your streets, potholing, painting of curbs, gutters, sidewalks, so on and forth. You also have $30,000 in expenditures for street striping. That's an annual program. And then you also have $43,000 in CIP projects. And it shows a negative 73,000. Your unencumbered fund balance currently is 161,000. So that 73 would reduce that $161,000 fund balance. Transportation fund, no operating activity there. Parking district, we demonstrate a balanced budget, a $7 surplus. However, we're not, that fund isn't really covering its actual cost of operation. The reason I say that is no personal staff time for the lease parking program, daily parking program is being borne by that fund. The other thing is we're not setting aside any dollars for deferred maintenance. And so Mr. Morris and I have had meetings with the ad hoc parking committee, and we anticipate that they'll make a recommendation this fall for ways of kind of closing the gap, finding a way for the parking fund to pay more of its actual cost. So SRO grant, this is something you talked about earlier this year. The program the chief mentioned earlier, the school resource officer program, so we're showing a balanced budget there. The AB 3229 COPS fund, that's your state COPS grant, essentially a balanced budget there. You're actually have a $6,249 surplus. Your 2012 CHP grant, this will be year 2 of a 3-year grant, demonstrating a balanced budget. Bulletproof vests, we haven't been awarded the grant, but the chief is hopeful we'll be awarded. If not, we'll come back to you with another recommendation. The Orchard Hill LLMD Fund, balanced budget. Cottonwood, balanced budget. Rigid Orchard Hill, balanced budget. The Equipment Replacement Fund, although there's no budget, I know Mr. Yule is trying to surplus some of his older vehicles, and there may be some funds that we can also use to purchase other equipment next year. General Liability Fund, we do show deficit spending of $48,000. This fund accounts for your property liability insurance, and so you can see the expenditure of $287,000, and then actually including $48,000 in tree removal in our cemeteries, which Mr. Yule will talk more about, and then transfers in from general fund, water and sewer, $239,000. So that $48,000, where that would come from, the general liability fund currently has an unencumbered fund balance of approximately $400,000. So that's where that would come from. The reserve for economic uncertainties would earn about $1,450 in interest, and the payment back from the Measure J fund toward the loan, $10,000 for a surplus of $11,450. So in aggregate, your operating budget totals $17,488,061. Expenditures, revenues, $17,386,545. We show a deficit of $101,000. That's primarily because of the $563,000 deficit spending in the sewer enterprise fund that's being covered by the reserve, the rate stabilization reserve. Just as a reminder, we have 13 open water and sewer projects. They're listed there. I won't go through them all, but that's all of them. Open transportation projects. We have 8 of those, from Blair's Lane Bridge over Hangtown Creek to the Central Main Street Overlay Project. Completed projects. We completed 7 projects this year, and from the Thompson Way sidewalks all the way to Town Hall street sign frontage. New CIP projects. So here we have the projects we're proposing for fiscal year 14-15, and with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Yule to talk about the cemetery tree removal.
Thank you, David. We have quite a few new projects on the slate here tonight. Cemetery tree removal. For those of you who may not be aware, the city maintains 2 cemetery parks within our system, and unfortunately, in both of them, we have really aging and primarily oak trees, and we've had an arborist report done on both of those 2 parks, and at their recommendation, we need to remove some trees completely, and there's a significant amount of dead wood that is falling from them and causing property damage both within the park and to adjacent properties. So we saw that as an urgent need. As been discussed quite a bit, we struggle with our police department. It's aging, and the roof leaks, and if anybody has tried to go through the front door, we have some potential trip hazard problems with the entry that we'd like to address. The Broadway crosswalk improvements. We have a few crosswalks in town that have luminaires within the pavement that are failing and are now obsolete. We can't get the parts for them anymore. So in order to keep those crosswalks safe for pedestrians and our children walking to and from school, we'd like to illuminate those crosswalks with overhead lighting. The Lower Main Street connector road closure, for those of you who've been through just this last winter, we have problems with icing on the connector from Placerville Drive to Lower Main Street. And we'd like to put in some gates that would free up help the PD department and the Public Works department in being able to close that particular bridge whenever the conditions become unsafe. This would enable us to do it swiftly. Right now, it's not very efficient. Typically, this happens late at night, and we get a call from PD, and then it takes 3 of our guys to come out in the middle of the night and put up barricades. This would just be much more safe and efficient, so that the officers can just shut the gate, and we can open it up just as soon as we can make it available to the public safely. Speed bump replacement. Throughout town, we have some rubberized speed bumps that have past their useful life, so to speak. We tend to hit them sometimes with our snow plows, and they're getting to the point where they're not very effective, so we would like to replace those. And with that, I see Darren's in the audience, our IT web expert, and maybe he could speak to the website upgrade.
That item lately is on your agenda for discussion, so we'll address that one later.
Oh, thank you, Cleve. So with that, happy to answer any questions or receive comments from the council, any modifications to the recommendations, or send us back to do some homework. Otherwise, we'll return to you on the second meeting with a proposed budget.
Okay, does anybody on the council have questions at this point? No? Yes. Okay, Carol?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, when will we see the actual results for the first quarter sales tax for 2014?
We'll actually see the first quarter sales tax return later this month.
End of June?
Usually probably next week.
Middle of June.
And I can tell you that if our actuals don't come in as forecasted, we may adjust our sales tax forecast for next year slightly. But if it's better, I would recommend just leaving it alone and go from there. But we can report out to you with the proposed budget what that was.
Right.
And be happy to do that. Either way.
Can you notify the board, the council, via email when we get the results in?
Sure.
Thank you.
That would be great.
Okay. And Patty, do you have questions? Okay. At this time, I'll open to public questions. Again, this is just there's no action tonight. Again, we had a workshop on this a week and a half ago. And so at this point, we're just reviewing this one more time, and in 2 weeks at the next council meeting, we will take final action. So I understand you have a question. If you come to the podium, please. State your name for the record.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jan Carr. I will make this quick. It's late and I'm tired and I'm hungry. I want to emphasize that I do not believe everything I read on the internet, everything I read in the paper, or do I believe everything I hear at Centro and or the Winesmith. Now, having said that, I know a little bit about equipment, because prior to almost a year and a half ago, I spent 42 years working as a professional sales representative for 2 different companies that made very, very highly specialized highway tank trailer equipment for transporting gasoline up and down our interstate roads, our county roads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you better make sure that when you're selling something to somebody, you know what the heck you're talking about. You've dotted all the I's and crossed all your T's. Now, I don't mean to imply that there aren't several people in this room that don't thoroughly understand that. I do want to make a comment. CARB only was in our industry on the truck end of it. They didn't bother us trailer people. But some of the differences in buying new versus used equipment, or we're going to say good used equipment, that you have to be careful of, and maybe several of you are aware of this, but I'm telling you it's a fact. Now, at least in private business, I don't know, in selling equipment to cities and other municipalities, two companies I didn't work for didn't do that very often because frankly they were kind of a pain in the butt to work for or with. But when you buy new equipment, you're going to get far superior warranties. I'm sure, Chief, you understand that with the cars and so forth. And you'll get better interest rates on the loans, unless the city just has the money sitting in somebody's drawer to go out and pay for
No,
it.
we
I
don't.
don't think that's the case. So you'll get better equipment, you'll get far superior warranties, you'll get better interest rates when you want to go buy it. Used equipment, typically, depending on what it is, it's what you see is what you get. You agree with that, Chief? You're shaking your head up and down, okay? And if you do go ahead and purchase used equipment, you will not get as good of interest rates, maybe by several points. That adds up to a lot of money. You can do the math, sir. And you virtually get no warranties. It goes back to seeing what you see is what you get. If you buy a used truck that's got, I don't know, 87,000 miles on it, it's your baby. So I'm just offering some advice based on my
Thank you.
experience. And thank you for listening to me.
Okay. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, that time I'll close the public hearing. Kathy, you've got to move quicker. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Kathy Lishman, Placerville resident. I was happy to see on page 4 under general fund budget assumptions the possibility of setting aside $7,500 for community promotions. Now, I know that community pride was always listed in that category, but we really don't consider ourselves part of community promotions. We're really an official committee of the city where volunteers do landscaping and maintenance on city and public property. And for a number of years, you probably know, we have had no funding at all. We have used money that we raised in a garden tour, which we haven't been doing for a number of years. And we also received some mitigation money from Caltrans for 3 gardens we took out. We are trying our best to try to raise money for the area next to the DA's office. And it's a very difficult thing to do, and we could use all the help we could get. We're not asking for money from the city, although that would be our dream come true. Maybe the council can help us raise some money from the community. I believe that when that garden is complete, it will be an asset to the community. First of all, it'll have benches and pavers and the monument for the Vietnam memorial plaques, that a lot of them are in the window back here. And so it's a significant amount of money to build the monument that those plaques will go on. But in the long run, it improves the city and is a bigger draw for tourists and a bigger draw for people to come and spend money here. We are not able to do the garden across the freeway, the Orchard Garden with the Goldbug Park sign, until the Monument Garden is done. We don't want to take off on too much. We're also sensitive about the water issue, so we're not planting any plants this year, but there's a lot that could be done with the garden next, the Monument Garden next to the DA's office. But what I really was excited to see was some money set aside that maybe could go back to things that had been cut. I appreciate the carefulness of the city over the years and the fact that things are looking a little better than they have been. And so and putting back the 5% that from it for employees that the salary has been cut and 5% time worked. I also have one question about the road between Main Street and Placerville Drive. It's really hard to believe that there isn't something that can be done to make it safe. And I'm worried too about the fact that how do you know it's unsafe after there's been an accident at night, or and having a gate on it? It just is not something that should have to stay that way. I mean, I have no solution, but it's just really hard to see that there's no solution to fix that. And the fact that it could be dangerous for a while before someone goes out and closes the gate. So it's a bad situation. It was caused by the contractor, and now we're stuck with something we shouldn't be stuck with.
Not sure what's caused by the contractor or the design, or just the fact that it's over a creek and things freeze. So
is Highway 50 over Weber Creek. And
it's, again, it's a separate, totally issue and different type of construction. So, again, I think Mr. Ewell has done a lot of work on that area, trying to find the solution. And in the short term, and I'll say 10 years, unless we put hot water pipes in that surface and resurface it, which I would assume would cost a lot more than $30,000, this is probably going to be the most effective, cost-effective solution we've got.
It's still not safe, though.
That's why I put the gates up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Put the gates up every night, I guess, to make sure it's safe.
When it freezes. Do you want to answer that, Steve, or did I do a good job?
I would just add that we're very sensitive, and we understand that that's one of the major arteries to our downtown, and we will continue to do all we can to make sure that it remains in a safe enough condition to keep it open. Right. But there's just those times when you have freeze and thaw, and we know when it's going to happen. Most of the time we can plan for it and let people know. But we just want to create a more efficient, safe mechanism to close it down when we do have to.
Good.
But every effort will still be made, given our resources, to keep it open and safe.
As long as I've got you on the mic, this past year we had quite a number of storms this winter that caused us to have to sub out quite a bit of snow removal and ice work on our roads. Do you have the approximate cost that we spent this past year based on the cold weather we had, the unseasonably cold weather, and the change in and then we had the hot weather, and then we had the cold weather again?
Yeah, it was about 40,000
Yeah.
collectively for all the resources and manpower and contracting out a lot of that work.
Right.
And part of that bridge, it doesn't make sense for the city to have the same kind of equipment that Caltrans may have. For example, really what we need for that bridge is a grader, but that's all it would be used for, so we have to contract that out. If we don't get the snow off of the shoulders there, then it melts and comes right back down onto the bridge. So this will give us some time to get the appropriate type of equipment out there to make it safe and get it open more swiftly.
Thank you, Steve. Any other comments, questions? Okay. At this time, I'm going to move to item 11.3, adopt a resolution approving a consulting services agreement with REY Engineers. Mr. Rivas. Playing change computer here, and oh, is Nate going to do this? Nate Strom? Okay. So I said Mr. Rivas, it's actually Nate Strom, our resident engineer, is going to review this item.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, I'm pleased to bring a proposed agreement with REY Consulting Engineers for design services on the Central Main Street overlay project. As a little bit of background, as you're all aware, the pavement condition of Main Street between Bedford Avenue and Sacramento Street is deteriorated below acceptable levels. And at its February 25th, at your meeting, February 25th of this year, you approved a project to repave the road, replace all the water services to each meter, construct bulb outs at mid-block crosswalks, repair failed or broken sections of curb and gutter, and widen the sidewalk along the west side of Center Street, and construct another bulb out at the Center Street Plaza, we call it, at Center Street and Stagecoach Alley. And in your report, the funding, there's a funding table that summarizes the action for funding at February 25th meeting. And since that meeting, staff have visited and made presentations with Placerville Downtown Association, PDA, and held a public neighborhood chat meeting on April 29th. Through this process, it was found that there's no good time to disrupt business and events in the downtown area. The PDA feels that early spring would be the least disruptive, the fewest events, and off-season. On April 1st of this year, staff issued a request for qualifications for this project for consulting work, and received 4 statements of qualifications from REY Engineers, Unico, Coastland Civil Engineering, and OmniMeans Engineers and Planners. And staff interviewed the top 3 firms based on ranking of their statements of qualifications. And following the interviews, the interview panel agreed that REY possessed a thorough, deep understanding of the project and the city's needs, and they have key relevant experience with the historic Sutter Street project in Folsom. It was a very successful project with minimal impacts, or a very invasive project, and businesses remained open, and the city and the businesses fostered a good relationship and constructed a very successful project that handled similar concerns that we will with ADA requirements, and keeping the businesses open during construction. So with that experience, REY was asked to submit a detailed scope and fee proposal, and following subsequent negotiation with city staff, the agreement, as you see in your staff report, is what we produced. And here tonight in the audience, the project manager, Jim Fisher, is here, and a principal with the company, REY, Bob Hune, is with him as well. And they'd be available to answer any questions about their company, the scope of this agreement, their thoughts, and perhaps any lessons learned from Sutter Street or their approach there. So concurrently with this RFQ and getting a consultant under agreement, staff has been looking at the utilities a little harder and reevaluated the risk of paving over some pretty old water and sewer facilities. So it's of my opinion that the condition should be fully evaluated prior to and a budget in place for replacement or rehabilitation of the water and sewer mains. And therefore, at the May 15th Measure H committee meeting, I pitched for $350,000 in funding for a water main replacement, and $175,000 for rehabilitation of the sewer main, through slip lining methods or others. And they agreed and made a recommendation that you've seen prior. And one additional final piece of the project funding puzzle, I hope, includes the balance of the funds from the City Hall remodel project, and that would include, or that funding would go toward the Center Street Plaza, bulb out, widening the sidewalk on Center Street, and when you tally up the additional Measure H funding and this City Hall remodel fund, the table before you in the project summarizes the budget. I've also summarized project costs estimated in that next table, including the $165,000 agreement with REY, some staff time to support REY, the construction estimate, staff time, construction support, including consulting, construction staking, materials testing, inspections, etc., and then a contingency amount. And with that, we've also talked schedule with REY, and I've outlined what I believe to be a reasonable schedule here. Design, preliminary analysis and design, and then final design up through December of this year, and getting out to bid in January, and award in February, with construction March through July of next year. And I also included a more detailed breakdown of estimated costs and the funding sources in your staff report. And so with that, I will be available to answer any questions.
I'll start with a comment and question. Main Street streetscape design development. What year was that approved by the city, please?
This is
And purposes on that.
2006. January 06.
That looks like Main Street now. No, just kidding.
Give it a few more years. Yeah. Give it a few more years, it'll be.
Yeah, if we don't do something.
If we don't do
pretty
something,
soon,
it will
that's
look like
what it's
that.
gonna look
But
like.
that is, was approved by January, or prepared in January of 2006
Adopted by the council, yes.
at that point, correct? Okay. And so the elements of that that we would be using include what type of work? Bulb outs? And
Oh,
the-
yeah, if you'd like an overview of the Main Street
Please.
streetscape plan.
I would. I'd like to see that.
And Pierre might be able to chime in here as well, but the streetscape plan, do you want to go over the history of the development? With that? The streetscape plan and the scope? Am I putting you on the spot?
If memory serves, I think the city, this was a almost 4-year endeavor where the city contracted with a consultant, a landscape architect, to come up with streetscape design standards for Main Street, basically so that as future projects and monies become available, then we would have a plan by which these development projects could be consistent with. This plan was, vetted through numerous public workshops. There were actual workshops that were conducted with the public and the city's planning commission and city council and staff, where we actually walked the length of Main Street with the consultant and looked at all the various improvements that were proposed. This plan represents the culmination of I would say numerous workshops with both the planning commission and the city council as to what Main Street could potentially look like when the various components are implemented. And so it was finally adopted then in January of 2006, and it provides a template that the city can utilize so that we're not starting from scratch or starting all over for each and every project, but allows for the city to have a consistent, cohesive theme in terms of how the improvements would occur on historic Main Street for the city of Placerville.
Right. And again, this is an overall view from, I guess, Sacramento Street all the way past the courthouse and up to Cedar Ravine. At this
correct.
particular project that we're working on a very small section of Main Street, and in front of the City Hall, you just had a section of the City Hall there that showed the bulb out on Center Street, I believe, just kitty corner from the City Hall, and then repaving up Stagecoach Alley. It does not require any major reconstruction beyond a couple. I think we planned 2 or 3 bulb outs along Main Street.
Yes, as far as this project.
2 crosswalks.
Two crosswalks,
and
2
then
bulb
the bulb
outs.
out on this street,
For
and
the
then it's just
crosswalks.
the repaving of these streets. And there may be, I guess, some enhancements to the sidewalk, and we're trying to decide what's the best type of crosswalks to put in place. But we haven't approved or deviated from this plan at all, or that was in place as I was elected or appointed to city council in 2004, and we were well into this project or well into this design phase and approved it in 2006. I just want to make that clear to the public that this is not a brand new scheme to try to repave or change existing parts of Main Street. This is plans that have been well thought out, with several public hearings and a number of involved agencies, and I believe there's even, did we do an EIR on this also, or was it necessary?
You know, I don't recall what environmental
Okay.
document was used for
Probably
for
not
this
necessary to
plan.
do a couple of-
Probably wasn't
Yeah, it's
necessary.
more of a design concept. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council at this point?
While he has that up there, I was curious to know, it says that you're gonna widen the streets, the sidewalk coming up Center Street, Stagecoach Alley. How much is that gonna be widened, and is it gonna affect, because I know that there's some parking allowed over there, is that gonna jeopardize on Center Street?
No parking on Center Street. We're talking about creating, currently the sidewalk along the west side, is about 3 feet wide. It's room for one person to walk. But so we would widen it to city standard,
what?
a 5-foot
I see
width, and no parking is currently on the street. It's a one-way street with no parking. And I've had discussions with the fire department about what the width of the travelway would be with the wider sidewalk, and they're on board verbally, so.
Okay, that's kind of what I was wondering. I was gonna ask, that was the final thing, is the travel. How much, okay.
In that same section, the sidewalk on the east side of Center Street, is that going to stay the same size that it is today?
I believe it is, yes. I haven't seen it in a while, but,
Right.
but yes, I think it's adequate.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't have any other questions for staff. At this time, I'll open the public hearings regarding this proposed project, and actually the action we're taking is the resolution and the appropriation of funding and authorization of the consulting services contract for engineering at this point, correct? And
That's correct.
Remove the Measure H funds for next year's.
Appropriation of funds and approving an agreement.
Okay, thank you. So, at this point, I'll open it up to public hearings. Please state your name and comments you have.
My name is Kathy Dean, and I'm a Placerville resident. I spent about 16 years living near Half Moon Bay, similar sized town. And the draw for that town was the age and the history. I feel the same way here. I've only been here since about 2003. But I'm extremely concerned, number one, that you're trying to dress up the town to make it something it isn't. I understand doing the work on Main Street. Yes, water and sewer does need to be upgraded, but I have also heard that you're planning on moving the bell tower and trying to make the downtown look, well, now, bear with me, folks. When I lived down on the coast, our local paper told us about all this stuff before it ever became, finalized. This started in 2005. I've been here since 2003, and I didn't know anything about this. I think you need to do a better job of informing the public of what's going on, number one. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on this. If you're looking at moving structures that have been here since the gold rush.
That's what I was trying to bring out. This is the plan that we've had for a long time. It does not involve moving the bell tower.
Okay, you need to know that there are flyers being sent out there that
I'm
that
sure there
state
are.
that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people would like to see us or see me gone anyway. But thank you. I certainly haven't, this certainly hasn't come up before, except tonight, and I don't believe it's part of this plan, and we're not doing anything near the bell tower at this particular point,
We are
other
not
than
doing that.
repaving the street.
That's correct, we're not doing that, but if I could add a clarification on this slide, number 6 there at the top, existing bell tower relocated.
Yes.
So that's, it was contemplated in this plan, however, we're not contemplating that improvement with this project.
Okay, thank you.
Well, people have observed so-called suits downtown pointing out what could be moved and what could be prettied up. So just so you know.
Well, like I said, I think it's rumors. All the work we're talking about is 3 or 4 bulb outs, the Center Street area, and nothing around the bell tower at this point.
Okay.
In fact, I think I brought up at one point we've had in the past, at last meeting or meeting before that, we had talked about, mentioned at one point Centros, we had a curved sidewalk and seating area out in front of there that the owner had requested several years ago, partially based off of this plan, but it was not anything that's been addressed recently. I just said if we're working on this area, we may want to talk to I think it's Greg, and find out if he's still interested in doing anything in that area.
Okay.
Okay,
And
well,
just
we have taken no action, so, but thank you for your comments and concern. One other
two
thing.
last quick comments. One, spend 2 weeks in Ireland before you put a roundabout in.
Okay.
Two,
We're not talking about roundabouts, but go ahead.
Two, I spent quite a few years as a corporate trainer. If you want to keep your audience's attention, you will give them printouts that they can read. Thank you.
Kirk Smith, Placerville. As far as transparency, I asked staff, 3 different people within the last week, about getting a copy of the streetscape. And as recently as this afternoon, I think I was informing Pierre, who didn't know it, that you had to do a search, but it was on the website. And as I glance through here, I don't see anything that mentions streetscape. It's only been described so far as repaving Main Street. And then you're showing up the chart.
I believe we were talking about, at 2 of the meetings we've talked about, Kirk, I'll correct you on one thing, because I know I was here, I was running the meeting, but we did talk about bulb outs, and we did refer to the streetscape designs that were done at this particular project. So
Is that streetscape in this document?
the bulb outs,
It is?
the bulb outs. If you look
Oh,
in there,
the bulb out is, but not the plan that you see up on the, with all the diagrams. That's not here. You're
sorry.
describing also, when you describe a central plaza, what is that? Is that where you have the bell tower moved? What does that mean? Do you reference that?
do you have another question, or do you have any questions?
I'm asking you one.
I'll wait till you're done.
Well, you were clarifying something which told me that this report mentions bulb outs.
That report was approved in 2006. I haven't looked at it lately. I
know-
had questions about it because, do you want to, I don't want to get in an argument with you, but it sounds like you're out spreading rumors or asking questions, and I'm trying to answer those questions, so.
No, I'm
but
asking
go ahead.
questions because I want to know. And it really wouldn't matter
That's
if
good.
someone has said it's been talked about for 20 years, because I only saw it about a month ago. And when I tell people, show it to people, well, so, I'm asking you, Carl, some straight questions, and I'd appreciate some straight answers.
Okay, we're going to try to
Is
give
that
you
reasonable
some.
to do? And rather than tell me about passing rumors,
Okay, as I've said, we're going to ask your questions, and then we'll answer. And I think Carol Pat would like to respond to one of your questions.
well, I
so
think you
go ahead.
interrupted me when I was asking a question.
Okay, go ahead and try your question again.
You use the
Start over.
term bulb outs and crosswalks, but there's no reference to the cityscape plan in what's presented to us today. And I was asking you where it is. But what I understood from your comment a moment ago is that it's cross-reference that term to that chart. Do I understand that correctly?
Is that the end of your questions? Do you have other questions, or you go ahead and complete all of your questions and we'll answer them?
Well, that necessarily would lead to other questions, so it just seemed logical to start with one. But if you only want to entertain one, and that's the end of
I'm going to
my...
limit you to 3 minutes.
Beg your pardon?
I'm going to limit you to 3 minutes. And you're pretty much close to that
Does that
now.
include my time, or does it include
No,
yours?
I've
of the
pulled
3
my time
minutes?
off there.
So if that's cut off at just one question, be my guest.
So is that the, okay.
Do you want me to wait till after?
let's ask.
Sue Rodman, Measure H Committee, and Placerville resident. When we met and talked to Nate about what they were going to do on Main Street, our understanding was we were going to repave it. And so instead of looking like, do we have a street or do we have a lawn here with the amount of grass growing in between the cracks of the pavement, that one of the reasons we may have that grass growing between the pavement is whether we have a water system and a sewer system that are still intact under that street. And so one of the things that came up was, okay, how much would it cost to go through this? And this will take a large chunk of our Measure H funds, but we felt like if we are going to repave Main Street, then it's important to make sure that the water and sewer systems underneath it are in good shape, so that, again, we're not tearing up the street after we do it to fix things or having those leaks deteriorate the pavement and the substrate of the street. So that's the reasons why you see number 2 and 3 on here were our recommendations, that we take care of those things while we're repaving the street, because there's no doubt in very many people's minds that the street needs to be fixed. There was no consideration of doing anything with the bell tower at our meeting. We did talk about the bulb outs as being something that would be, it may reduce parking a little bit on Main Street, but it would provide for pedestrian safety so that the cars would not be so close to the crosswalk and you could actually see people and the people could see the traffic. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the public?
Mr. Dristigal, it looks good on you. Good evening, Dave Machado here to thank you for bringing this item up, and thanks staff for approaching the PDA. We've had some good discussions. The change of the construction date was well received. The early date was October. That's a huge time of sales for us, so for staff to put it out to bid and do it correctly and get it over with by July has been widely received. And but I want to go back to some history about the project for the new council members, as well as some of the members of the community who weren't here, I believe, at that time. But a lot of this started with the Friedman Plan. I believe that was in 1998. The Friedman Plan then went on to the Revitalization Committee. From the Revitalization Committee, it led to a plan, budgets, votes of both merchants and the property owners of the time, of which some of that money is being recommended to finish the bulb outs. I believe the city's held on to that money for, 10 plus years, Dave? And it's about time to get it finished. And just one suggestion, I don't know if Mr. Morris passed it on to the engineers or whatnot, but your general plan calls for housing downtown. That's mixed use. It's in your 2-story buildings, and the fire code today requires the buildings to be sprinklered. So the average meter going into each building is about a 3/4 inch pipe. That's not enough volume to feed your sprinkler systems. Once we repave Main Street, nobody wants to dig it up anytime soon. So while you're replacing the water lines from the main to the meters, and I think that's part of the project, you should upsize the line now to about 1.5 inches. Your engineers can double check, but that's what I just did at the 437, 439 building. I had to dig it up. It's about $4,000, which is not the issue. It's digging it up after we've put down beautiful new pavement. So if you can incorporate into your bids, when you replace each of those water lines, you don't have to do your 1-story buildings. They can't go residential, but the buildings that are 2-story, it's 1.5 inch copper pipe instead of 3/4. It's a couple of bucks, but it'll save you tearing up Main Street down the road for years to come. So thank you, and looking forward to the project.
Thanks, Dave. Any additional comments, questions? Okay. I believe Carol was going to answer a couple of questions that
Well, I think,
Mr. Smith had.
and I just would like to reiterate what I heard was that how did the bulb outs and crosswalks of this plan go back to the streetscape plan? Unfortunately, this particular picture that's up right now is just one picture of many that are in this particular plan. And Dave Machado brought it up that back in the late 90s, there was a urban designer by the name of Michael Friedman came to town and held several public hearings. It was very well received. I wish the woman was still here that said, why are we reinventing Main Street? Because over and over and over again, it was reiterated that we already have a real Main Street. We don't need to invent a Disneyland. We already have the real deal. But how do we make it accessible to all so that you can park your cars here, you can stay however long you want, and you can do business downtown? And so out of the Friedman public hearings and very public process, Wendy was probably here taking notes, as she has been for a while, was developed the Revitalization Action Plan. And the Revitalization Action Plan, basically, Friedman's proposal was to do the face of the back of Main Street, the interface between the back of Main Street and Highway 50. There was a little bit of talk about Bedford Avenue and, certain other intersections, but what he felt the key component was that the reason people do not come into Placerville was because what the backs of our buildings look like. Out of that Revitalization Action Plan also came the design for to lower the streetlights. I don't know how many people remember, but we had Cobra head streetlights. And so the streetlights were designed attractively, I think. So we have the nice green streetlights, and then we have the benches, and we have the trash cans. And basically, the merchants downtown and the property owners downtown funded and taxed themselves to pay for that design. They couldn't afford to pay for the Highway 50 design that Friedman did, but what happened, I forget the year that Caltrans came and said they wanted to do some improvements on Highway 50, is we got $3 million or $4, however big this project was. Caltrans paid for those longitudinal barriers, paid for the bridges that come into our town, because this community had already developed a design that Caltrans couldn't ignore. So they had to do their context-sensitive design. They built the bridges, they built the nice barrier rail and the fencing, and but with the other thing that happened from the Friedman plan was we became aware of the fact that there was no cohesive design to the Main Street itself. Pierre touched on it a little bit, so that as things started to happen, what colors do we use? What types of public services or public design do we use? The street lights were one of them, and once we picked the street lights and the benches and the trash cans, then okay, well, what do you want to see? Where can we repeat the brick that's used throughout? Where can we do these kinds of treatments? And so the Friedman plan morphed into the streetscape design plan, which is on the board right now. The streetscape design plan never had any money, not one drop of money. But what the community felt was important was that at least we have a design that everybody liked, or that the people that were involved at that time liked. And that's how that design came to be. The bell tower, this is just a design. It's just an artist's rendering of what the plaza could look like. But again, there was never any money. When Greg from Centro came to the city and said, I might want to push out the sidewalk, they were able to show him this design, and he was able to actually take it and look at it and see if he could work with it. But the bulb outs were a component because the Revitalization Action Plan had $60,000 left over. The committee that was formed, of which they were merchants and property owners, to, like a steering committee, like the Measure H committee. Those people decided that once the revitalization action plan was basically done with the monies that they had, there was still $60,000 left. It wasn't enough to do the bulb outs in and of itself as a standalone project, so they said, here, city, you keep the money until you do exactly what we're doing now. And so you can take that $60,000 and now we can get 3 bulb outs out of it that were all part of this original plan. And as far as, I mean, I know this plan has been around, and I know that it's on the website, and I've had numerous copies of it, and it's been voted on, or it's been seen by numerous councils and voted on by more than one. So, you know, when people say, well, it's never been seen, or I don't know anything about it, well, it's out there. You just have to look for it, because Nate didn't pull it up out of his trash can. He didn't just make it up. It was already there, and there was already money allocated, and that's the hard part. And about transportation projects or any of these infrastructure improvements is they take so long and they cost so much money that you have to piece together the Measure H funds, the RSTP funds, the City Hall. I didn't even know we had money left over from City Hall remodel. But there's another fund out there that this administration is able to go, well, why don't we use this and we can get better bang for our buck, which is what Sue Robin says every single time she walks up, and she says, let's do these pipes now because we can get a better bang for our buck. And what Dave said about doing the pipes for the water, I had no idea that we needed that size of pipe. So that's kind of the history. I don't know if it answered your question, but that's how the streetscape design got into this, is because of the funding account from the PBIA, PBID trust accounts, which was $60,000.
Thank you.
And if I may, I think he brings up a good point, that I didn't reiterate that, you know, this project in you know, compliance with the adopted plan. I was relying on prior meetings that we had, prior staff reports. I should have reiterated, you know, this project and how it fits together with the streetscape plan.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I heard one comment from Mr. Smith, or a question, I believe was a question referring to the Center Street Plaza that's in the report. That is actually was called a plaza as a result, I believe, of the remodel, John, of City Hall. It has nothing to do with the bell tower area. It's identified by that bulb out that we showed earlier next to Center Street and Old City Hall, or current City Hall, not Old City Hall.
Right.
That area right there is what we call the Center Street Plaza that
Yeah, I think
Nate is
that's where
referring
the
to there.
confusion
Has nothing to do with the bell
Right.
tower.
And at the time we finished that project, we didn't have the funding to repave in front of that area or do the bulb out.
And therefore, we
were
held
short.
off until
Right.
what we have today is the additional funding to do the paving. It's a good time to do that work now, so.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments?
No, I just also would, I follow up on what Carol said about the lady that came and said, well, it's the first time she's ever heard about it. And we hear that comment so often here at our meetings. And, you know, there's so much going on in the city, and obviously we can't go through our list of what we've got planned every time we have a meeting. We'd be here till midnight every meeting we have, and all these things are listed on our website. And you know, I don't know, I'm going to suggest that maybe on our website that we have a calendar, or not a calendar, but something that says future projects, and then there are projects that we've talked about, and where, you know, direct them where they can go and, you know, further interest, because it's just something that we just can't talk about at every meeting, so.
Yeah, and I apologize, Mr. Smith, if I got a bit upset. I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, so at this time, yes.
My understanding, we weren't going to lose parking because the bulb outs were just going to fit right there with is that correct?
We haven't fully analyzed it yet. It's part of the scope, but there is some red curb adjacent to the crosswalks that the bulb outs will likely, you know, take. So that, and there are, in addition to that, spaces between the parallel parkings. They're offset L's rather than T's going down the street. So there may be some few feet here or there we can scrape together and retain all the parking, but no, it hasn't been analyzed yet.
Yeah, at one point, they even showed some diagonal parking there. I don't think we're gonna look at that, are we?
This diagonal parking shown here, engineering has looked at the curb-to-curb distance width of that street, and that's not feasible, so we
Okay.
won't be looking at that.
That's good. Again, so it's a concept drawing, it's not an engineer drawing, and they're just concepts. So, at that point, do I hear a motion to,
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution with the conditions 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second?
been moved and seconded? Would you call roll, please?
Vice Mayor Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Hagan?
Aye.
Councilmember Patton?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Thank you. We're moving on to 11.1. Receive public input and direct staff to prepare final documents to replace sales tax measure on November 2014 ballot. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. What we are requesting the council do tonight is review the documents that we've prepared to date. I want to emphasize these are draft only, based on the information we have at this time. We are not asking for any vote of approval of this tonight, but we'll bring it back for your next meeting for consideration. At this time, long story short, and I'll go through some other details, what we are recommending is that the council consider a half-cent sales tax, which is what we've talked about the last couple of meetings, which would be with a 10-year sunset. As you recall, the information that we provided to you regarding our survey that we sent out with our utility bill, clearly a 10-year sunset showed us the preference far and above the others. I've also tried to outline some of that information in here, what that looks like. We do recommend that we look at a general tax rather than a specific tax. However, possibly considering a companion measure, which would give the voters the opportunity to, as an advisory vote only, to outline what they would prefer to see that spent for. It's not required that we do that. There's been several times we've talked about it, whether or not we want that companion measure. I have not prepared a companion measure at this point. I've gathered information on those and talked to some others and some consultants, but we don't have that information yet, but we will prepare that if it's the direction of the council to look at a companion measure also. My main point tonight was to ask you to review this information, recommend changes that you would like to see brought back at the next meeting. We do need to, if we want to make the November ballot, we do need to take action at your next meeting in order to get the information, the resolution to the council on time, or to the county, on time, to make that November ballot. I think that we've had this on our agenda for several meetings. I think we've covered most of the information, but I'm open to answering other questions, receive more information from the public. I welcome that information on their preferences, and then receive input from the council that we can bring back for the next meeting. So with that, I'll make my report short tonight, and I'd like to hear from the council and the public. So.
Any comments from council? Not yet. I have one, and that's, I'd just like to make sure we have some samples or examples of a laundry list. In other words, if we listed 6 streets and 1 park, does that satisfy the intent of the law as far as the general sales tax? Or would it be more advantageous, or could it be more advantageous to have it listed in the companion measure that listed the duties and expectations of the committee?
Let me try first, and then I'll let the legal counsel do it. But in the companion measure, you can be as detailed as you want. In the actual ballot measure that is not advisory, that is the actual ballot measure, I think that has to be somewhat general in order to keep it as a general tax in terms of doing road maintenance, facilities, parking facilities, public facilities, you have to be somewhat general in that to keep it as a general tax rather than a specific.
Can it say capital improvement projects that involve these types of, and examples would be road, parking, improvements to existing and future structures? Would something like that might work? I mean,
Look at the sample resolution that I've provided to you. I show a potential language for the ballot measure. This is on page 3 of the resolution that's in the report, the sample resolution. Apologize, thank you. And it says to maintain and provide quality, safe public facilities, including maintenance and repair of local roads, restoration of historic Old City Hall, remodeling of the city's police facility, and repair and maintenance of other city facilities, shall the city of Placerville enact a half-cent sales tax with citizen oversight and annual independent audits to end after 10 years with all funds spent only in Placerville. And then there's the yes, no for that, so.
This is what struck me was the remodeling of the city's police facility. Could we use the word expansion or renovation? Because when I think of remodeling, it sounds like they're getting granite countertops.
Sure, good comment. We can
good observation.
Sure, yeah.
And in that area, one of the things that occurred to me in the past, we looked at, we did search of other sites, and one of the things that I'd forgotten about and thought about over the last couple of weeks, months, as we've been reviewing this, is one of the facilities we looked at as a potential is the sheriff's office. At some point, the El Dorado County Sheriff will potentially be most likely moving down to other sites. I believe they have a budget item where they've approved research of 3 different sites, 3 different locations for a new sheriff's office. And I know at one time we looked at that facility because it's the size, 15,000 square feet. It's in the city. It has excellent access to the freeway and access to downtown fairly quickly. So I mean, I want to make sure that if we decide to do something in that there's not only with the word remodel or what was the word you used? Expansion or change, that we might include somehow potential other sites again to look at it, so that committee has carte blanche, if you will, and not driven down a narrow path.
Okay.
So kind of open up their mind a little better.
We can look
and
at that.
And I think that also satisfies, takes it away from a specific tax when you do that. So maybe it's $2 million and we lease the facility for $2 a year because the county's nice to us, and we turn the old police station becomes a fire station, because that's one of the things. Station 25 on Sacramento Street is extremely small, extremely outdated. And so maybe there's a swap, or maybe there's room to do that. So I mean, there's other possibilities. So I just want to think that we try to look at those options and things around the area. Okay. With that, I'll open up to public comments.
Sue Rodman, you're stuck to hear from me one more time.
That's okay.
Couple of things. If I really like the idea of looking at the current sheriff's office and turning the police station we have now into the fire department, the ladder truck for the fire department is already there. That's what that other half of the building is being used by, so it'd make a great fire station. I'm pleased to hear you're going to have a citizen advisory committee. I think that's really important. And however you do a companion measure or not, I think a lot of it's going to be real communication with the people in the city as to what we need to do with this, and the fact that we've got $19 million worth of deferred maintenance on our streets. in the CIP list of things that need to be done, and we don't have that kind of funding from any other source. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Sue.
Kirk Smith, City of Placerville. You've helped convince me about my perception of this issue. And it is that I don't want a tax increase, no matter how badly I think it's needed, unless it's specified as to what it's for. And you've helped convince me about that tonight. Because I can tell you, as Cleve will tell you, I go to PDA meetings regularly. And I did talk to staff to look at it for a week. And there's nothing on that reference that we saw before that said cityscape. The plans that you've approved were not merely to repave. When you're talking about bulb outs, that cityscape plan that we would have had notice about if it had said cityscape or made some reference to it is a very radical departure from the historic line of downtown, and does affect such things as Doc Weiser's stagecoach operation because of the confluence of turns around there. So sometimes it appears to the public that it's almost like when you dangle money in front of this body, that's money from such sources as grant money, it's kind of like putting booze in front of an alcoholic. They're willing to take that every drop because you're strapped for money, just with, without regard to the danger strings that are attached. Those plans, like your plan for realigning 2 streets up above, there's nothing in this language that would give us notice as to whether you would or wouldn't do that. There's no restrictions on doing something that the public doesn't want done by virtue of this proposed tax. If you made it specific about the kinds of things you're going to do, that could be different. And yes, you run a risk if it's 2/3 of the public being required to vote on it, if you're specific. But if you're not specific, then you run the risk of people generally not being able to trust you. And again, telling us tonight that, oh, well, this has been talked about for 5 years or 20 years or even 50 years, as if it's not open for discussion or asking reasonable questions, like whether it's that cityscape plan, which is really a dramatic departure. It does look like Disneyland, those various flower pots and things of that kind that are not part of the historic scape. When I went to PDA meetings, the discussion about paving had to do with things like scheduling that would not be disruptive to the businesses, and shifted around to wouldn't be during Christmas. Those are the kind of things I heard. So I would oppose the tax without a specific allocation of what it's for, just because we've had a record for the roundabout and things of that kind where trust is seriously damaged. Thank you.
Further comments?
Good evening, Dave Machado here to talk about your roads and sales tax and again a little bit of history. Measure H was not a specific tax, if I recall. It was a general tax.
Specific.
Okay.
Specific.
Well, then this website has it wrong, but it did pass 75%. It did specifically say to pay for a state mandated wastewater plant upgrade and help reduce water and sewer rates in the city. That's all it said. It didn't have a laundry list of items. It was specific. The public, the residents of the city, the businesses of the city knew what the money was going to be spent for, and they overwhelmingly approved it. So tonight you're kind of kicking around this laundry list of ideas, from saving and restoring Old City Hall to building a new police building. I think it's a stretch. Your surveys tell you that if you put Old City Hall on it, it's not going to pass. Your surveys tell you that if you put a police building on it, it's not real popular. But if you fix the roads, it's very popular. So I think you might want to pare down your laundry list. You don't need a new police building. You just need to keep fixing it. But your sales tax, we've done the 1/4% for Measure J, we've done the 1/4% for Measure H, and now we're looking at another 0.5%. If you put it on the ballot that way, you're a full 1% over El Dorado County. You are now really putting your businesses at an economic disadvantage to the county. Just walking here tonight, they're painting Main Street, and there's a paint shop that's doing the paint. And I asked her about the owner of that business, did she know the 0.5% was on tonight? And she said, well, let me tell you what SMUD does. I have a contract with SMUD, but when they buy paint from me, they deduct the difference of the cost of the sales tax, because theirs is lower down there than up here. And on, and I don't know if anybody's checked with our car dealers. They didn't oppose Measure H, but do they support whatever this measure will be? Sue Rodman just said your deferred road number, I think, is 19 million. Well, 0.5% for 10 years will generate 20. It barely gets you your roads, but it certainly doesn't rebuild your police building, and it certainly doesn't restore Old City Hall. And why you're trying to save Old City Hall and keep it is I just don't get it. You've tried to sell it, you had it in escrow, you made a mistake on that one, you had to refund the buyer's money, but lower the price. So what Sue Taylor did on her building, the owner, we were there, I won't go through the history of that, but ultimately the seller of that property lowered the price to the point where somebody else could buy it and restore it. And that's what you need to do with Old City Hall. It's an asset. The budget, it's tight. You need to restore your fund for economic uncertainty. It's pretty low. Sell Old City Hall and restore that fund. Keep it? I don't get it. I'll wrap up by saying, dial back your laundry list. Tell the citizens what you need. I think we get that we need road money. I think we can pass this. But the 0.5%, I don't know, and the laundry list of items, I'm uncertain, and I want this thing to pass. I understand you need some road money, I really do, but the 0.5% is, you're going to risk having a fight on your hands and losing this thing. So dial it back and let's get you some road money. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak?
Evelyn Veerkamp, Placerville. I would simply like to say that I think David Machado has just now made a most persuasive argument. It resonated with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Any other comments, questions, concerns? All right, I'll close the public comments on this time. This was...
Can I make one quick comment?
Sure.
I apologize. I just want to assure the council that at the PDA meetings, it was not just paving. I definitely told them that we would be doing the bulb outs as part of that project. So they were well aware at PDA meetings that it was the bulb outs along with the paving at least. So.
And we presented the exhibits on the screen.
Right.
We presented that plan. Yeah.
Right.
May I? There was also a question as whether we've contacted our car dealerships. Can you answer that question?
I have contacted, I met with Ron and Jeff, thank you, Jeff Thompson, and they stated that they did not oppose us doing a 0.5-cent sales tax.
Thank you.
And part of the reason for that is the people that live in other areas pay this sales tax for their area, but they also pay the increment here.
Right. I was hoping that Cleve could give the information to the public. I have a couple more things. I have a couple questions and some comments. I like the fact that it's a 10-year sunset. I wouldn't really want to see it go much longer, because if we're not doing a good job, it's gone. It's not something that lasts forever. That kind of goes with the committee. But I have a question about the committee. Oh, and as far as other people paying. We're number 43 out of 539 cities per capita tax. That means it's not just us. This is the only way to get money here that isn't just our citizens. My question about the committee, is it going to be 5 members? Is it going to be chosen like we choose planning commissioners, where we as a group decide? Will they be appointed by each of us, or will it be just the mayor and vice mayor who appoints them?
As far as appointment, that has not been determined. I will say that, and this is my recommendation, and we'll accept whatever the council like to do. Our recommendation, I know at the last meeting there was some talk about doing a 7-member committee. Our recommendation is a 5-member committee, and that's from our experience working with all of our committees and my experience in working with other committees in other cities. We find it extremely, even going for those 2 more, it's more difficult to find those. It makes your quorums more difficult to get in order to hold meetings. And it just, 5 seems to be an ideal number from our experience. And we've had some of our committees now are more than 5, and we have had trouble from time to time.
Measure H's 5 and works extremely well.
We've had trouble from time to time getting people, especially when we started putting categories that people had to be. For example, the Historical Advisory Committee is an example. I believe is 5 or 7, Susan? It's 7, I believe.
All of our
isn't it?
committees are 5. We finally got them
Okay.
down to
Okay.
mirror the number of the council, with the seats expiring the same time as your council seats. So
Right.
the end of this year, there'd be 3
So-
committee seats up. But it is difficult when you get very specific about having one businessman from Placerville Drive, or one commercial business owner, or one architect, or one, because of it being a small town, like having an architect, we don't have a lot of architects. And so getting one that can consistently come to the meetings is somewhat difficult. Not just that profession, but, when you're having a general contractor, has to be an architect, but this committee, there could be a logical, and it could be done, it doesn't have to be mayor and vice mayor. The council can each appoint their own person, and you can have 5 people that way. You can do it full council if you want. You could do it whatever way you want to do it.
The point is that method of appointment, it will not be decided by this. That's something the council can decide at a later date. But
Well,
yes.
but I think that it should be determined before, while we're presenting this plan. Is it too specific to ask for, my suggestion was maybe a person from various districts, like, a person, not a specific, like a business owner, but like a person from the Broadway area.
A
or person-
geographical area of town.
A geographical.
You can do it however you'd like to. Again, there have been a couple of times when we've run up against a problem of no one applying for a committee in a certain category.
But geographical would really open it up to a lot of,
Could.
Anyway, but I think we should determine, and not, I think we should be specific of who, I think that needs to be decided.
I think the question, Measure H Committee, and I'll use it because they do numbers and they do capital improvements, currently is made up of 5, and they're not by classification. They are 5 citizens. Dave is the liaison with that committee.
Yeah, there's, I believe it's 3 residential and 2 business, business owners or business property owners.
Okay. All right, so, again, that's just an idea and a concept that we could use a similar thing, or even use the same committee, in my opinion. But again, that does make it easier because that committee meets 2-3 times a year currently. Sue, Measure H?
Measure H.
At least quarterly.
Okay. Okay. Good.
And they're appointed just by the mayor and vice mayor. They
Right, but we
decide
could change that, so it's
if
the
we
whole
didn't
vote.
use the same committee.
Right.
We could use the same committee and just change
Just redo it.
All right. That's it. Okay, I think you've heard the information and stuff's going forward. We are now at 11.2. Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is something that we've been looking at for some time now. And I'd like to introduce Darren Baldy, one of our IT people, and he's going to review this report and talk to you about why we think this is a good idea to look at this now. So,
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, residents of Placerville. Well, I'm pretty excited to bring to you guys the fact that we're looking into getting a new website. It's going to be built from the ground up. It's going to be a full replacement. And you know, as Mr. Morris said, that has been in the plans. We've had that planned for a couple of years now, and I've only been here about a year and a half, but I know that it's been in planning for a while to revamp the website, to renovate, if you will. And what really sparked this project and kind of put it on the hot track was the fact that our current provider has raised the web hosting fees from $1,925 to $4,200 per year. And that doesn't include maintenance, which is an additional $3,975, I believe, for a total of $8,070 a year recurring. We've negotiated with them this year to keep it at a $6,757 amount for hosting and maintenance to finish the year through next April. However, because of this increase, we decided to look out for other vendors that would offer a better service, a better product, and a better price. So the item number does pretty much speak for itself. Just getting to the bottom line, 5-year cost savings for the city, $98,855 should we elect to go with the new vendor EvoGov. That's just under $20,000 cost savings per year for the next 5 years. In my opinion, that's pretty much the only thing that really needs to be said about the project. There's so many benefits that are going to come with this project. The vendor themselves have proven to me that they do care about the city itself, and as far as when they begin their projects, they keep the city's core values and core features in mind. So when they do design a website, it's custom built for the city itself, and it will showcase what the city offers, so to speak. And just, you know, in conversations with them, I felt really comfortable about that, and from that point on, I was really excited about it. And then, when I heard the price, I was really excited about that. With the web background myself, I do know that hosting should never cost $8,000 a year. That's just a little server space in some server room in some farm in the Silicon Valley that we're using a little piece of a hard drive that they're charging thousands and thousands of dollars. And this company recognizes that, and they're quite honestly tired of seeing municipalities being gouged for that, and I do applaud them for stepping up and addressing that big concern. Annual cost after the redesign, which would be the initial cost will be $17,800 as compared to a $90,000 price tag with our current provider, compared to our runner-up, $43,500 with Civic Plus. Like I said, the annual cost after a $17,000 initial cost, $17,800 initial cost would be $1,500 a year with no contract, year after year. So it's just a year-to-year contract with them, which is also very appealing. So it looks like it's going to be about, of course, with this initial investment, $17,800. Yes, that is a dollar amount that we do need to come up with. They will take payments, $4,200 in installments, in increments of design phase, rollout phase, training phase, and then final rollout. After year 2, it looks like we'll begin recovering that cost. Return on our investment will then start to kick in shortly after year 2, and then every year after that, throughout for the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be saving the city $6,570 per year, just in maintenance fees alone. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a couple of questions. Darren, would you, currently, my understanding is that we input the data and do the day-to-day maintenance and the changes in our website currently?
We do.
And would that change?
We would still input the data. It would actually be a lot easier with the content management system that will be in place. We will actually have more flexibility from an IT and perspective, as well as a web design on my end, to make changes that normally aren't made from those that are updating the site regularly in their departments. If there needs to be say a homepage change, that's something we would be able to handle at our end without having to wait for a trouble ticket to be dealt with from our current vendor.
And currently, if the staff have access to it to input minor changes in their departments?
Minor changes.
Or posting of, I guess.
Exactly.
This sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That we get.
Flyers, brochures, park regulations, agenda items, events that can all be posted by each individual assigned from each department on a very granular basis. As far
one
as
of the things that I've asked about or talked about over the years is the ability for us to be user-friendly for customers. In other words, somebody wants to rent, Steve is hiding, wants to rent Town Hall, this building, or wants to use one of the facilities of the parks. Would there, or could there, or is it possible to add those features there without a major interface problems between the finance department or collecting the funds and in that department? I mean, obviously some of that stuff would have to be done by quote experts, not that Steve is, but not Steve, but somebody who understands computers,
right?
Not basketballs. I guess he understands those pretty well, but that seems to be, this simplified interface seems to be something that we'd be able to generate additional usage or additional expansion of this ability for different departments to use it. Could we put building permits on and things like that, or do you see that?
Absolutely. There are a lot of features, and I welcome you to visit their website, www.evogov.com, and they will list out all of the features that come with their standard package, which is pretty much all-inclusive compared to all the other ones who are pretty much a la carte, is how I coined them. They include, RFP bidding tracking systems where you can actually have them handling it themselves. We currently go through another website, correct, Nate, to handle bidding and RFPs.
On construction projects, yeah, I use another website.
Right.
RFPs I do on our website.
Okay, yeah, we can also do the same thing with this website without having to go outside. It'll be all included. It'll have tracking for, it's kind of like a help desk for the community. Say there's a sidewalk that's kind of raised, or a tree has fallen in the road, or say that the concrete pothole has gotten ginormous because some kids got a little bit bored one night and they decided to pick pieces apart and it ends up 2 feet deep. The public can send that in as a request or as an alert to, it will go to the correct department and they'll be able to go out and Public Works can, address that issue and get it worked out. There's going to be a lot of, there's going to be the ability for the public to log in. I don't want to go too deep into exactly what we can do. I can just say that we have a lot of flexibility with what we can do compared to what we are able to do right now. There'll be an intranet for administrative purposes, for human resource documents, memos, memorandums, stuff that the community or the administrative part of the city of Placerville, the employees will have access to, that before it kind of just gets lost as a piece of paper. Now they have one-click access to it, all stored on a database. Paying bills online, that will be part of it as well. Of course, that we'll have to work with finance department on that as far as merging the two systems together, but it will be able to interface with the website much easier than it will be, or than it has been, you know,
Good.
that we were supposed to have with the current website. So,
All right, well,
Yeah.
thank you.
you're welcome.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Morris?
Just, Darren, could you address the issue? One of my things I like about us with the,
Responsive.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, yeah. Well, there's two things that I almost left out. One was definitely the responsive nature of the website. Responsive means that when a visitor goes to a website, say on their phone, their tablet, their computer, websites are generally formatted one way. And when you pull them up on your phone, if you've noticed, sometimes you have to kind of scroll around, zoom in, zoom out, and you find the link, you have to really zoom in to click on the link. It gets kind of cumbersome. With a responsive website, basically all you're doing, all it's doing automatically is resizing to the phone. So when you see the site, the text is very legible on your phone as it is, say, on your computer or on your tablet or on a laptop or even on a projection screen. It all will mold itself. It's very liquid, so to speak. It changes with the type of device that it's being read on. And also with a responsive site, a lot of people have non-responsive sites that their alternative to making a phone friendly to their website, they'll go and buy an app for the city, which, you know, I haven't really priced them, but I can say that they probably cost in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. Well, without, you know, with a responsive site, you don't need to purchase a mobile app because your site will already be mobile ready. So
Right.
there's another reason to go with that. It's it kind of kills two birds with one stone, so to speak. And the second point was, if we do nothing, just leave it the way it is, basically 5-year projected forecast with our current vendor, no changes to the website, will be about $40,350 with maintenance and hosting over the next 5 years. If we get a brand new website, get everything that I've explained to you here tonight, the responsiveness, the mobile app kind of included in there, the RFPs, the citizen request tracking program, $23,800 versus $40,350, and that gives us everything over 5 years. So,
Right.
do nothing, 40,000. Do everything, 23,000.
What?
Do you sell insurance on the weekends or something or not? No.
Well, it's definitely when I come up here with to see you all. I always want to bring things that are going to help the city, get the most out of their money. You know, I'm not. I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and I probably will not be presenting projects to you that don't involve a considerable cost savings for an incredible improvement. So,
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What can I say? I know absolutely nothing about all this stuff, and I have to put my trust in somebody who does this for a daily living, and you really sold me, so.
I like when he said, the bottom line, that's all you really need to look at.
Exactly.
Really. So I'd entertain a motion to authorize staff to enter into an agreement with EcoGov for redesign, hosting, and maintenance.
And I'll second that.
Okay, and then I will open up public comment.
Oh, sorry.
Right, no, that's okay. We've got a motion and a second. We can still open it up at this point. Are there any comments from the public at this time? Anybody else? Okay, we'll close public comments and we'll, because it's finance, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Hagan?
Yes.
Councilmember Patton?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Okay. So I believe at this point we are on 7.4 has been removed. And so now we'd be on 8.5.
Mayor, 8.5 will fall down under number 14.
Oh, sorry. All right. So, 12, council reports, agency meetings, transit committee, Trish?
I ran my second transit meeting this month, and that's what I have to report. But Patty can, if you want to add anything.
No, we didn't. I just want to say that they officially now have started the remodel of their facilities. And it sounds like they've got a great plan in place, and they're moving right along.
And then the LAFCO, do we have a meeting?
I did have a meeting, excuse me, and the council member Thomas also attended as an alternate because we actually voted on the member of the public at large, member of LAFCO, and picked a woman from Shingle Springs, I believe. Anyways, it was an interesting meeting. So that's all really to report.
Okay, Sidco, Ms. Burley?
Yes, I think I mentioned that it was El Dorado County's turn to host the meeting, and since Placerville did it last year, Norma Santiago, who's on the Board of Supervisors, and she represents the Tahoe District, made the arrangements to have it up there, and she arranged for us to go to the new, we know it as CCC building, California Conservation Corps, and they also, they provided us with lunch, and it was the most interesting program. I had no idea that the CCC camp, I call it a camp, they've built a lovely new building up there and they have 80 people in the program, students I call them, and they told us all about the program. They particularly specialize in forestry. However, they served us a beautiful lunch, and that's part of their teaching program. It was just most interesting. And then we met for our meeting, and I've already shared with Mr. Morris that part of the SEDCOR on the agenda was Randy is kind of, he's redoing a lot of the things, and when they got to, they had called it Community Issues, Needs, and Wants, and he would like us to present a program to them about our needs and wants in our community and what they can do to help us out. I also went on the, and this has nothing to do with SEDCOR, but I just wanted to say that I attended the El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce Agriculture Tour, which is sponsored every year by the Chamber of Commerce and the ag people. And this year, it was particularly interesting, I thought. We boarded 2 buses, and we toured Goldbug Farms, Lava Cap Winery, Indian Rock Tree Farm, Larson Family Museum in Camino, and Rainbow Orchards, where we were served lunch prepared by the Ag Department. But what made it especially interesting this year is to hear the successes of all of these folks. But what really interested me is that they are working on, some of them, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation. So our young people are staying here for some of, which is something we've been trying to encourage. And they put on a beautiful program, and once again. And then I also, wanted to say that, I don't know how many of you read your current American City and County. And one of the articles was in King County, Washington, they built a new sewer plant. And part of their, what they did is that the heading is, when picking the perfect wedding venue, rarely does the local sewage treatment plant come to mind. But it was built and designed, and I really think we missed the boat, because these guys are making all kinds of money at their sewer plant. Holding wedding venues and having a place to go. It says it costs about $2,000 to rent the facility, and several inquiries into the availability have already been made. One couple has already secured the facility as their wedding venue, according to the AP. They report that all funds from the events will go to the facility's environmental education programs. So, but that also brings to mind, as we had talked many times, and I don't know what the progress has been about us maybe looking into and putting a solar system out there. And I don't know how far along we've gotten, if anywhere.
Ask the engineers that one. SACOG, we had our meeting on the 29th of May. We've finalized the work plan budgets for fiscal year 14-15 and the work program. Also, they are finalizing the public workshops for the 2016 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and reviewed the process for consultants on the EIR for that. And then there's a committee that's working on cooperative purchase or utilization of shared services. And one of the things they're looking at right now is cooperative purchase of fuels and lubricants for different governmental agencies within the 6-county region. So that's what we did also honor at our local transportation committee outgoing director of Division 3 of DOT, Jody Jones, retiring. Will be retiring at the end of this month after 34 years with the state. Caltrans.
Caltrans.
They changed their name.
And what is most interesting is that she's retiring, and she has recently taken a seat on the Paradise City Council.
And is running for election.
And she's loving it.
Yeah, right. But anyway, that was pretty much the end of those items. On item 13, future agenda items, other than we just announced, is there any request for future agenda items? I don't see anything.
I have two, but one's a question before I would bring it up. At our last transit meeting, I noticed, which I think most boards do, we had an item pulled from consent, and we just discussed it right immediately there. We didn't have to wait for the whole meeting. Why do we wait until the very end? It seems like more logical to just get rid of consent all at once.
We could change that, possibly. We changed it.
Yeah, it's gone, but, okay, so I would just bring that up. It might sound, and also, I've been in contact with Stephanie Midden from Courage Worldwide, and she is asking, she wants to do a presentation to raise awareness on human trafficking, and I don't know if that's something that I would need to ask staff or bring it up at an open meeting.
She wants the city to address.
She wants to do a presentation. She's worked with the mayors from Lincoln and Elk Grove, and I think she might be looking for a proclamation or just something. I think January is the established, I think January 11th is the day, and January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Certainly do a proclamation.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you would like her to do that presentation, the council, we can do that. We can put it on you can give me the contact information.
Okay.
We'll set it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, excuse me. Earlier today, I met with Finance Director Dave and City Manager Mr. Morris about prior fund balances and how they work on our budget as we're working through our budget requests and whatnot. And I found it really interesting to hear it a little bit different than what we got in our staff report, and I'm hoping that we talked a little bit about maybe bringing it back to the council as a whole and what they thought of actually getting a little bit of an overview of, it's not the way they've normally done it, but it might help. And Cleve thought it might be a good idea.
What do you mean, Carol? I don't understand.
Well, like tonight, there was over $600,000 requested in monies, new monies, basically. And I had no idea where that money was coming from. So I called earlier, I got in contact with Mr. Morris earlier today, and that we arranged to have this little meeting, and the way that it was, because I never look at it globally, the whole city budget. You know, we have a budget of $7 million each year, but maybe we have $60,000 in the PBID trust fund, but I didn't know, unless you were there, you didn't know that it was out there. So I think in an effort, of transparency for one thing, because I like that word, and it gave clarity to me to actually see, just because Dave Warren can pull money out of his hat, I know
It's that tree.
I know it.
keep
I know
telling
there's
you.
not a tree at City Hall, but it was really helpful to me to see, we actually have it in those audited reports, but to integrate it, the audited report with the summary page, is that what you had to? Anyways, it was very helpful to me, and if the council was interested in it, I think it would be a worthwhile exercise if, I'm just putting it out there, it was worthwhile for me.
Were you talking about the money that was in the CIP on the equipment? No, because we got that at the workshop.
No, yeah,
Okay.
it's well.
You can tell me later, but.
It was, if you look at all the numbered items today, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items that all had monies allocated to them that I really couldn't see at a glance where they came from.
Gotcha.
So that's all. And some were budgeted already, and some weren't. And
Right.
Nate's really good about getting money from here and there in different pots. And I just, I thought it was helpful to me, and I just was thinking maybe
Right.
it would be helpful to the rest of the council and to members of the public.
Okay, great. All right.
Can I ask, Mayor, do you need that to come back at the next meeting, or can it
Well, the
be
next meetings, we're actually voting on this.
on the budget, right?
I was thinking maybe when the sales tax revenue that report comes through, when he has those numbers, and that maybe do like a mid-budget review and do like, here's where we started, here's where we are now, here's what we're moving into.
So not necessarily at the next meeting, but sometime here in the near future.
I think that's a lot to ask right now.
Yeah, that was my concern, is whether or not we can put that together for the next meeting, but
No.
we can do it possibly within the next couple of months here.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to suggest, if I may, is with your mid-year budget report, by that time, the books are closed. We also have refreshed forecasts for your current fiscal
Right.
year, and we could show you, along with that report, what your fund balance, at close, what your fund balances were, and your unencumbered balances, and what's available for other projects or monies that you could earmark for certain uses at that time. So.
Now, that's fine with me. It was helpful to see a more comprehensive view.
Okay. Move to item 14, which is items pulled from the consent calendar. Item 8.5, which is the acknowledge and file a city clerk's certification of the sufficiency of the initiative signatures based on the verification of the El Dorado County Register of Voters of certification of signatures collected for an initiative measure. An initiative to amend the City of Placerville general plan to prohibit traffic circles, and an order, a report as allowed in the election code section 9212 A and B. Ms. Zito?
I believe Councilmember Wilkins pulled this item. I don't know if there's a specific question about this, or?
I have a couple of questions on it. One, okay, who is doing the report? It's going to the agencies. Who's doing it?
County elections.
No, I'm sorry. City staff prepares a report. It would be a
Okay.
combination of myself, Mr. Rivas, Mr. Warren, probably Nate would be involved, and of course Cleve.
So you guys would answer each of these questions? Like, is it like the impacts, and it would be your, okay. And I know we don't know how much an election is because number of voters, all of that. But what about the report? Is it staff time, and approximately, what's the cost of just the report? Not the whole election, but just to do this?
Staff time, my time.
How much?
Gosh, I don't know if we're gonna, we get it done in a very short period of time. 30 days is not going to be that long. So I don't know how long it's going to take to gather the information in terms of staff. I mean, Pierre, you're going to be looking at general plan issues. Dave's going to be looking at the financial aspects. Nate was going to be looking at the public works portion of it in some respect. Cleve overall administration. And it's hard for me to tell you because, frankly, I'm out of touch with what staff costs are these days.
What's the current budget?
Is her mic on?
No.
Sorry, the button's the wrong way. Elections Code 9212 A lists all those 8 items. It doesn't mean that they're pertinent to this particular one, like the effect on vacant parcels may not have, anything to do with the roundabout issue. So I don't know that we have to answer every question. These are questions that the report can respond to, but it doesn't mean that for each instance on any kind of an initiative that they would all apply.
And just to give you a little better, other than staff time, in terms of my time is going to be the out-of-pocket expense, if you will, for the city. It should be covered by the retainer hours that the city pays me for just on a monthly basis. I don't see it exceeding that in and of itself.
And my last question is, can you explain what's the purpose of the report versus not doing it? What's the value of?
It's an information tool for people to have access to.
For the public, or?
For the public, yes. Yeah, for the council and the public.
So if they had a question, what's the fiscal impact? Or you guys would decide which of these are going to answer, and then they would reference, they would have a report to look to.
Everything that's applicable would be answered, and it's answered in an impartial analysis.
Okay.
Where does this report live? Does it go to the ballot?
No, it would reside at City Hall.
How do voters get it?
It could be put on the website, for example.
So it would be it could be part of a campaign?
It could be used for campaign purposes by either side.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Okay, so to answer your questions? All right.
Yeah, we
Have to acknowledge it.
I make a motion that we acknowledge and file the city clerk's certification of item 8.5. Oh, sorry.
Public comment.
All right. Public comment?
Kirk Smith, looking at your staff report from the general manager for June 10th, reference to 8.5, discussing this suggested report, it states, quote, "It is prudent to determine any and all issues surrounding the initiative measure for the purpose of full transparency for the voters," close quotes. I was wondering if the name of full transparency for voters, certainly those here today, if you could tell us, after having this in your hands for more than a month, if you could tell us what kinds of issues do you see, rather than just cite the statute, is on your mind? What kind of questions have come to your mind so far regarding this initiative, so that we can maybe spend some time in the name of full transparency to know what do you have in mind, again, after about 6 weeks now. I was hoping maybe you could help flesh that out to follow up on the questions asked by the council member, Ms. Watkins.
Additional questions? Sure. Yes, no, maybe so.
A couple of firstly, I would like to thank Councillor Wilkins for the suggestion that items pulled from the consent calendar not necessarily be consigned to the midnight slot. it would be most welcome if City Council would consider taking consent calendars.
We are, thank you.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the Friends of Historic Hangtown, I would like to, first of all, thank Susan Zito and the people at City Hall who have assisted us for their professionalism and the very even keel with which they've handled us. Thank you very much, Susan. Acknowledging on behalf of the Friends of Historic Hangtown that we have indeed received our copy of the Certificate of Sufficiency for the initiative to amend the general plan to prohibit traffic circles. We thank the City Manager Cleve Morris for his recommendation that City Council receive and file the Certificate of Sufficiency. We shall anxiously await the completion of the report that he recommends within the 30-day deadline that is required by Election Code 9212B. We shall then look forward to the subsequent presentation to and accepting resolution from City Council, along with transmittal of the resolution to the Department of Elections of El Dorado County. And a final comment I would like to make to the people of Placerville who have actually made this possible by signing and returning their petitions in what seems to our knowledge have been a record period of time of 13 days to help us qualify for consideration for going forward on the ballot. Thank you very much.
Any additional comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Mr. Morris, what kind of questions?
Well, I'm gonna name one that's come to my mind that we want to check into and try and get more information on. For example, we have a two roundabouts that are planned for the Western Placerville Interchange project. We are currently in doing a supplemental EIR, which is almost ready to certify. We'll be coming back to the council within the next month, probably, if not less, for your certification and approval. Which essentially approves those roundabouts, and you'll be asked to approve those as the preferred alternative for that project. What effect would this initiative have on those if it passes in November? Are those then approved so it has no effect on them, or are those not approved and then in November it's back to, in order for us to build them, we would have to go back out to the public to have that certified, to have that approved, to actually build those roundabouts. So those are the type questions that have come to my mind. How does that affect funding for that interchange? And who controls that interchange? Is it Caltrans? Do they have the right to say that it can only be done with a roundabout? Or does it have to be done, if we can't build a roundabout and they said it has to be done, that's the best alternative, where does that leave us? So those are the type questions that are in particular that have come to my mind. I believe Mr. Driscoll has some others that he's looked at preliminarily, and there will be more as we go through the process.
As Mr. Morris indicated, actually some of the things I was thinking of he touched on in his comments, but certainly the fiscal impact can involve a number of areas. And I'm not suggesting at this point that we've determined that there is a fiscal impact, but it's something that we would want to study. Is there a fiscal impact with respect to grant funds and monies that have already been received for that specific roundabout at Cedar Ravine? Are there other fiscal impacts with respect to other proposed roundabouts that Mr. Morris just mentioned with respect to the Placerville Drive, Forney Road area? What's the effect on the internal inconsistency of the general plan? It's something that Mr. Rivas and I will have to look at and report back on. So there's a number of things on this list, plus whatever else the council might want to add to it, that we would have to look at to see whether or not there are impacts or issues that need to be addressed.
Okay.
So it would come out as an educational piece to the public saying, if you vote for this, this is something, repercussions or tying our hands, whatever, and it would just be facts.
Exactly. For example, and I'm not saying this is the case, but the city has used CMAQ money already on one of the roundabout projects. Does that money have to be repaid back if in fact this were to pass? That's a question that needs to be looked at.
And the answer would be in the report?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there may be determined in court, right? Well, I mean, you're an attorney.
It's
so-
possible that we may not be able to come to a conclusion on it, and just,
Right.
it may be an issue that's gonna be out there. But
Yeah.
at least we may be able to get some answers, from the people who we got the money from.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were part of the city, I think, approved a roundabout at the corner of Hilo Road and Forney Road. That was not done lightly. It was to the tune of saving that project $1.5 million, rather than two signalized intersections. So, and that doesn't account the one that was approved 9 years earlier at the corner of Fair Lane and that. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what all of the reports come out. Regardless, there's the cost of doing business is a cost of doing business. And if it's so, the voters will at least have options and choices, and we can move forward. Anyway, so I believe we need a acknowledge and file.
I'll still make my motion to acknowledge and file 8.5.
Okay.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of items 8.5?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. City manager, staff reports. Any?
Susan has one item.
Just a reminder that June 21st is our next community cleanup day from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Mosquito Park and Bus. I'm hoping for cooler weather. We've gotten a lot of phone calls. Dave was able to get it into the last utility bill, so we've gotten a lot of phone calls from folks, so it should be a busy day. I'm hoping that Mr. Morris's Boy Scout troop will be able to give us a hand that day.
We're working
I'm really hoping that his troop can give us a hand that day. Volunteers for this event are always kind of a challenge. It's a lot of work, as Mayor Hagan knows. So we're looking forward to an increase in tonnage and breaking all the previous stats for garbage. It's such a cool goal to have. And I'll report after the 21st at the meeting, maybe at the 24th, of how well we did. Thanks.
Anything else?
I should have mentioned this during his report, but I want to thank Darren Baldy, who came and did the report on the website tonight. He did most of the work on that with help from George Spriggs, who's behind the secret wall back here. But I want to thank both of them. This was a big deal. We've been looking at this for quite some time, but their ability to take it on when we had this large fee increase was great, and Darren has done a great job with that. I know you don't see him at these meetings. I don't think he likes to be here to them, but we got him to come tonight to make a
He
presentation.
certainly was
so
very confident. I thought he gave a great
he did well.
report. And yeah.
So I want to
was
thank him for that. I
impressed.
should have done it while he was here, but
Well,
anyway,
pass that thanks on from the
we'll
council.
yeah.
Anything else? City attorney have any exciting news? Okay. So under upcoming items, it's listed what's tentatively scheduled. Lighting and landscape, obviously the budget, and Proposition 218 certifications for water and sewer adjustments. And that's it. Adjourn at this time, and our next meeting will be at 5 p.m. closed session on June 24th, 6 p.m. regular session. Thank you all for being here. See you at the fair. Won't see me on the 21st, but